Some of the content of Patriots Unfiltered may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
The world's original podcast.
Welcome to Patriots Unfiltered.
Beth is just like shaking her head at me.
That's the barometer
I get
for a
that look a
wedding,
lot.
though. Like if you're at a wedding and you have to sneak away to the bathroom for a couple minutes and come back like nothing ever happened, having a fun time.
Oh yeah, this was after the wedding. Like I got it through the actual wedding, and this was
when he laid down and everything
when it was time to go to sleep, and I was like, this isn't gonna work.
Or like you don't make it to the brunch on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
That's when you know too.
Is this in your bridesmaids handbook that you're putting together for speeches as well as?
For those of you who don't know me,
I gotta start writing that speech actually.
she is my ride or die.
my soulmate.
She's like laughing because she knows she made fun
We've all
of
sat
so
through
many
these
people that did
speeches.
this.
Did the Saturday Night Live sketch
Ups and the downs.
when they were doing what was it? Shoot.
This is Patriots Unfiltered.
Presented by Toyota's official website for deals, buyatoyota.com.
Lots of pressure, Evan. Lots of pressure. Patriots Unfiltered here on a Tuesday, just 2 days ahead of the draft, and we're all by ourselves.
This is a first.
I know, this is like the
first
real
time
radio
ever.
stations that decide, well, it's vacation week, it's school vacation, so we're not going to come, even though it's a major sports news week in New England. Right? You got the
I thought
playoffs
people
going on for
didn't
the
take
Celtics.
vacation.
You got the
Sign up.
draft coming for the Patriots. Everybody just decided, I'm not going to work this week. But Evan and Paul are here. We'll bring you through the next couple hours for Patriots Unfiltered. Not a whole lot, I don't think, has really changed in terms of what most people feel about the direction that we're going to go. But I did think there was some interesting stuff from Adam Schefter on Monday.
Yeah.
Sort of like a big catch-all draft notebook kind of thing with a lot of tidbits in it. Some interesting items in there. Anything in particular stick out to you?
Well, I always go back to remembering, I think it was last year that Bill Belichick was on one of his draft paloozas at some point in his media tour, and he just said that the 24 to 48 hours before the draft is when the real information starts to come out. You know, all the other stuff is really kind of smoke, and then we get right before the draft and some of the reporting starts to be more accurate to what is actually going to happen. So I actually pay a ton of attention to what comes out over the next couple of days.
I would agree.
Because of that, and a couple of things that stood out to me. Peter Schrager this morning on ESPN, now on ESPN from NFL Network, reported that the Browns and the Giants are both fielding trade calls for the number 2 and number 3 pick. And he mentioned 3 players that could possibly entice teams to trade up. Hunter and Abdul Carter are obvious, but he also mentioned Ashton Genty, which I find interesting for the Patriots because it stands to reason if there's 3 players that teams are interested in, could the 4th overall pick have some value and be for sale if a team wants to come up and get Genty as well?
Yep.
So maybe the Patriots do factor into that. Could they trade up a spot to secure one of those other 2 guys? Possibly, but I look at it more as maybe a team might trade up to 4 for
I agree
Genty.
with you about Genty because I think people have tied him to Jacksonville a little bit at 5. So if you wanted to get in front of Jacksonville, obviously who's in front of Jacksonville at 5? The Patriots at 4.
Right.
I do want to just let everybody know Fred is just running a little bit late. He didn't take the whole day off, so he'll be here. And until then, I'll try to hold down the fort and stumble through a couple of things for you. Just to get the bills paid and all of our all of our advertisers satisfied, right? So remember, this is an in-house one. Remember this one, Evan, because you need to support the home team. Join New England's event staff here at Gillette Stadium. Seasonal positions are available in food and beverage, parking and security. Visit www.thecraftgroup.com/careers and apply today. And who wouldn't want the opportunity to get left all by ourselves on a radio show 2 days before the NFL draft? I mean, that sounds like a great opportunity to me.
It does. It sounds great. And you have a lot of great jobs in the stadium on game day. You can. We talked last week on Catch 22. Alex was a hawker, walking around with
so checks
with waters and whatever peanuts or whatever else they have to sell. So you never know. could get involved.
Yeah, so I do think the Schrager thing, and you just caught me up to speed on that just as we were coming on the air. I do think there's some interesting, this should be some interest in those kinds of reports. I think Vrabel said it last week in his, a week ago today, right? His pre-draft press conference when he was asked about any movement, any calls, and he said it's a little early for that.
Yeah. So
now, as Evan said, within that 48-hour window, I would expect things to sort of start to perk up in terms of, rumors like that. And I would also think there's probably some desperation on the part, not maybe desperation is a strong word, but some urgency on the part of Cleveland and the Giants to sort of drum up interest in those two picks, because this hasn't been a typical year, in my opinion, where those picks have had as much value as they've had in the past for obvious reasons that we've talked about. But yeah, I would imagine they're taking one last, attempt to try to see if they can drum up some more interest.
Absolutely, and fielding calls is obviously very different than actually making a trade. Last year, I think the Patriots, we saw it on Hard Knocks with the Giants calling for the pick. They technically fielded calls about the pick, but it was a quick, we're good. We're gonna stick and pick here. But it's always fascinating when the pick is not a quarterback. You're not going to be taking a quarterback at number 2 or number 3 most likely. It's a non-quarterback heavy draft. So it's always interesting in terms of value what you can actually get out of that pick. Now, obviously, the further you move down, the more you might get back in a trade. But I go back to that Will Anderson trade a couple years ago with the Texans, but the Texans moved up 9 spots to make that trade happen. That's a significant amount of spots to move up. If you're only moving up a couple spots and it's not for a quarterback, how much value does that pick really have will probably ultimately decide whether or not any of these teams move. But I looked at that report again, and I saw Gentry's name in there, and I think for the Patriots, that's almost the best case scenario, is that some team is so infatuated with Ashton Gentry.
I think we got a visitor.
Oh.
It's Aaron Salkin. No. Aaron, who do you have with you?
We can put him right in the middle here.
All right. Right here. DeMario Douglas. I only call you DeMario. Do you know that? I think I'm the only one in the media that, because I don't really know you that well. Right. I don't feel like we're on a nickname basis.
Nah, we can get there. There's nothing,
Paul Perillo. I know you don't know who I am because I haven't been in the locker room a whole lot since you've been on the team, even though I've been here for a million years. But DeMario Douglas, and a very welcome guest here. I was not a surprise guest.
Yes.
I didn't know.
Well, they don't tell us anything.
I wasn't prepared.
The boss isn't here, so
So Evan Lazar, I'm sure you know Evan.
Hey, good to see you.
Nice to see you.
So what brings you by today? I know that there's a start of a sort of a voluntary veteran kind of mini camp going on. Is that sort of the phase that we're in with the OTAs right now?
Mm-hmm. We in voluntary workouts.
And what's that process been like so far?
It's been good. We got most of the team here, and I feel like everybody bought in, and man, the coaches are doing a good job, teaching us the new stuff and, taking care of us.
This is new for you, I believe, because it's a first-year coach and all that kind of stuff. So we don't always see the voluntary mini camps.
Right.
Is this a little different for you this time around with Coach Vrabel being a first-year coach, at least here in New England? And have you ever done one of these before, a voluntary mini camp?
Oh yeah, I did last year.
We had one last year.
Yeah, I had one last year, and because I had a new coach every year since I've been here. Yeah. So, I always been here early, but, I feel like it's good work, I'm getting to learn, we all getting to learn, the playbook early, so it's good.
Josh McDaniels back as the offensive coordinator, and I think one of the things that we all think about when we think of Josh as the slot receiver, right, and your position in particular, playing in the slot. Have you watched any film of past Patriots offenses? I know you've done that before a little bit, but just knowing his success with players like yourself, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, how exciting is that to have an offensive coordinator that can use you like that?
Man, that's very exciting, man. I was happy when I heard his name, him being the OC. And it's going to be a blessing, to have him as the OC. And I know what he does. I seen what he does with, while I was playing with, Jacoby. And, man, he just feel like he brings out that slot position.
Do you watch some of the I mean, obviously there's a lot of guys
Right.
that have had a lot of success, a lot of production in that role. Have you watched a lot of those guys like Wes Welker and Julian Edelman and Troy Brown?
Yeah, most definitely. As soon as I came in, I feel like Bill made a clip for me of all the top, they slots that they had, and I mean what they did good, and what they did bad, and what they could fix. Well, they can't fix them because they successful, but he was just showing me the ropes and how they became successful.
I know it's a long way to the season, but is there any sort of goals you have in mind or areas that you want to improve on this off season to potentially take it to the next level?
Yeah, I would just want to push my room to, I feel like, for us to compete. The better one man is, the better the next one be as we compete, So I want our room to be that room that brings the energy.
So that's interesting. You talked about when you want to push the room. Do you feel as a third-year guy now coming into your third year, you feel a little bit more comfortable maybe with leadership kind of role? And how do you think that you might be able to manifest that? Like, you want to push the room. How so? Like,
I just got to step outside my box. I'm the person that leads by example. I don't really, talk a lot, but, feel like it's that time, get out my box and, just start to put my foot down like, okay, this is not how I'm supposed to go, this is how I'm supposed to go. And, if I feel like somebody's slacking and I know their potential, I'm going to push them, We have a good room right now, and we're definitely competing, and I can see it in the room. It's competition. I love it. So, like I say, the best the top man is, the best the next man going to be.
So you do have a new member in that room.
Right.
Couple new ones.
Yeah. But obviously, Stephon Diggs is the newest.
Yeah.
Him and Matt Wilson.
Yeah.
I mean, not Matt Wilson.
Matt Collins.
Yeah, Matt Collins.
But just curious your thoughts of Steph, and I don't know if you knew him much before. As a younger guy, I don't know how much interaction you've had with him, but what have your impressions been of him in the room?
You can tell he's a super vet, a good vet, and when we used to, my first year playing the Bills against the Bills, that's when I first met him, and he was like, man, I like your game. So, that first game we played Bills was here. That was actually my first game actually like breaking out as like that player, like everybody like, oh man, the kid can play. And that's when I met Steph, on the field after the game, and he was like, man, keep balling. And then I felt like every time we played Steph, man, I always ran into him, and he always gave me, good advice. It's crazy that we're on the same team now, and now I get that advice every day now.
That might be good, Ev, because I think you had a pretty strong game against Houston too.
Right. Yeah.
And, and Steph is so when Steph is on the field,
yeah,
pops up.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
That's how it works, Steph.
That's true.
Talking about that Houston game, that was Drake's first start, and it feels like it's come a long way since then. What have you observed of him so far this offseason? I think there's been some, maybe from yourself, at some of the events along the way, that he's a little bit more, his leadership is like starting to come out a little bit more here.
Right, and his confidence, through the roof, and I want to keep it there, and that's by all us doing our job to help him, make it easier for him. But he's becoming a good leader, and he's more vocal than ever, and the huddle is different. When we first got there, it was like super fast. He was like nervous, but now when he's in there, like all right, like he says it with swagger now, and that's how he has that confidence. And when somebody plays with confidence, they play good, and that's what we need out of him. And I know we're going to get that out of him.
Was there anything that from his rookie season, last year, that took you by surprise about Drake, or something that you learned about him just playing with him last year?
Man, he plays with tough grit. Yeah, man, I seen him get hit one play. He went out, and I'm like, oh man, he's out this game. I'm sick. I ain't gonna lie. I was like, oh man, my boy out. But then he came back. And that was a hit. Like we all like, oh man, he out for a concussion for sure. And he came back on the sideline like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to play for my boys, and that shows a lot. That shows a lot that he got our back, so we got to have his back no matter what.
Really quick, last question: What you got any plans for the draft on Thursday night, or do you watch it? Like, how do you watch it? You all get together or something like that?
For these past years, I had a boy in there, so I have some people in there. So I watch it. I watch the draft to see my boys get drafted, or go to a team. I'm very supportive of the guys, especially from my hometown, not a lot of support, but, I'm going to be that support system from my hometown for the guys that's making it to the league is big.
Awesome.
And you see all those wide receivers, and you're like, yeah, we don't need that guy.
Especially
slot guys. We don't need any of those.
We good over here.
So I appreciate you taking some time to come down. It's a busy time for the organization. You guys are busy doing your on-field work and your strength and conditioning stuff. Obviously, they're getting prepared for the draft, but thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't be a stranger. You're welcome anytime here.
See you soon, I'm sure.
DeMario Douglas. See, I can call him Pop now because now I feel like I know him a little bit. And even bigger surprise, Fred Kirsch, ladies and gentlemen. Coming in the side door.
Sorry, I'm late.
So yeah, I wasn't made aware that we were having a guest. So yeah, I didn't know that DeMario was coming to join us, but he was great. Talked a little bit about the mini camp that's going on right now, sort of the voluntary veteran mini camp that is allowed for first year coaches. So that process is going well. Talked a lot about the slot stuff, and with Josh. I think Evan asked him about, like sort of that role, and Josh's offense has been really good. So he'll give you the reads, Fred. So I got the Patriots one out of the way off the top. So
yeah, good.
You can do Toyota. And,
the Patriots one? What's the Patriots
Well, the one for, food and beverage and.
Okay. Good.
Recruiting.
Okay, recruiting.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember talking to Pop.
I'll be taking the rest of the show off now.
I think it might have been his rookie year, but he talked about the cut-ups that he talked about with us just now that they gave him of Edelman, Welker. Obviously, I believe Troy Brown might have been his position coach at the time, so there was plenty of Troy Brown stuff on there. Deion Branch, all of those players that had played in that role in the past. So it's exciting to see him, with McDaniels and see what maybe they can get out of that role again.
Great.
Yeah, but we got a couple of days out of the draft, and I know that Fred, you've been working. We don't have to get to it right now.
Okay. All right.
I know Fred's been working on the back of the envelope. I went up and I actually walked in on the research this morning.
Oh, wow.
This very morning.
Behind the curtain.
I walked into Fred's office, and he was hard at work coming up with his back of the envelope guys.
And I'm not done yet. Yeah, I've done about 4 positions.
Yeah, because you pulled a Paul in college and you waited till the last minute.
Well,
and you're not ready. You're not prepared.
I'm busy.
Yeah. So Evan and I were talking about just the draft in general and how it's starting to get to that point where you're starting to hear, well, the Giants and the Browns are looking to, move down, and there are some teams that have inquired about moving up. I think both Schefter and Albert Breer specifically cited Denver as one of the very few teams, if not the only team, that has expressed interest in moving up.
Is that right?
Earlier this week. But now you're starting to, I think Evan talked about Peter Schrager had a report that there's some interest on the Browns and the Giants maybe being willing partners to move down. So we'll see how that might impact potentially the Patriots.
So I was doing a little exercise driving in, and as you know, I have a long commute, so I get to think a lot. And at first it started like, why am I even thinking about this? It didn't happen, so why waste time? But what you just said, maybe make it a worthwhile exercise. And the exercise is this. What if the Patriots had had lost that last game of the season, and they had the number 1 pick, and everything else just moves down from there? Patriots, in my little exercise, in that case, pick Travis Hunter. Okay? Next up is the same team that would be picking number 1.
Tennessee.
They pick Cam Ward. And then I'm assuming the Giants, who they would be 3rd now, right? Cleveland would be 3rd. I'm assuming they pick Abdul Carter in this exercise that I have. So now, who's the 4th pick? And I'm thinking, through this exercise, you could find the person who would want to move up into the Patriots slot for that player. Like, who in everybody else's mind is that 4th guy? We're picking Will Campbell because there's a need there.
Right, and I understand.
You know what I'm saying?
I understand your exercise that you're doing. But I also think that you might be missing a step if the Patriots had the 1. Okay. Yeah, you could say Tennessee would just sit there and say, well, obviously they're not going to take Cam Ward, so I don't have to trade up.
Oh, somebody would trade.
But someone
into
else might be interested in trading up at 1.
You're right. Yeah.
To get ahead of Tennessee to take Cam Ward.
You're right.
And that might
right
force
now,
Tennessee to move up.
No
from
one can
2 to 1.
get ahead of Tennessee and take Cam Ward because, as Evan pointed out before you joined us, Tennessee certainly seems to be locked in at this point. They're taking Ward at 1, so they're not really interested in trading, even though my good Everett buddy Mike Bergonzi has let everybody know that they're open to anything. It certainly seems like they've locked in on Cam Ward. So that's how it would change. Someone might want to trade with the Patriots.
That's true.
And slide down, and then it would depend. Whoever the 4th team is, it totally depends on who that team is.
Okay, so let's
like if it's Jacksonville, I don't know. They might not. I mean, I don't think
that ruins the exercise.
To your point, I don't think that a lot of teams would take Will Campbell at 4.
Right.
The Patriots have a dramatic need at left tackle.
So in my exercise, who do you think is the player after Carter that most teams would want?
Ashton Genty.
Really?
Yeah, I think just in this draft, and the closer that we get to the draft, I think you're hearing more and more that there's 3 consensus blue chip talents in this draft. He's one of them. And some teams, I think, are trying not to reach on need at the top of the draft. And if you're just going to pick the best player available in that spot, it would probably be Genty. And maybe a team that's a little bit more better equipped on the offensive line, feels like they're in a better spot, would be willing to trade up even now, to 4th overall to take.
So do you think Genty's going to be number 5 picked?
I think he's.
A lot of people think that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Jacksonville.
think. Yeah, I don't know. The one thing that always holds up with Jacksonville though is that they have an analytics guru running
a totally new regime too. So you don't have a book on them.
Yeah, but Gladstone's he's a nerd. Like he's an analytics guy. So to take a running back at that spot is probably not typically what you would see them do.
This is what you're supposed to say. Duval.
Yeah.
But if I had to guess,
Cohen, actually,
who is the best player on the board for pretty much every team, if that scenario were to play out, Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, the next best player is Genty.
Yeah. And
what about Tyler Warren?
I think he's probably a top 10 consensus guy.
Yeah, probably
I think that's
on
the
the fringe
problem
of
is
it.
no one. I think it's the eye of the beholder.
It's a flavor
for all of these guys.
Yeah.
I think you could say Will Campbell, Ashton Genty, my guy Jalen Walker, Ty Warren. I think some people like the other, Colston Loveland better than Tyler Warren, even as a tight end. But I think that you could ask 10 teams who the other, the 4th player is, and you might get 8 answers.
So if we weren't picking 4th, and I think they're going to pick Campbell, I don't know, but who do you think would be the 4th player? I mean, well, no, I'm sorry. If we didn't pick Will Campbell, where do you think Will Campbell would go?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a case to be made that he would slide a little bit if the Patriots weren't in the position that they're in. I think there certainly
6
is.
would be a spot that he could go to the Jets, right? That's
7.
7 to the Jets.
They have a left tackle. They'd be drafting him to play the right side, I suppose, or maybe even left guard.
They might not be as disappointed if he had to play guard.
Yeah, I could see that. I could still, depending on what happens with Colton Miller and all that in Vegas, like maybe the Raiders would still take him, but the Saints, I think, are another team. Talisi Fugawa is really a right tackle who they drafted last year in the first round. So, he goes back to his natural spot at right tackle. Campbell goes in at left tackle. But I think there's a chance, to your point, Fred, I think is what you're getting at, that if Campbell didn't go 4 because the Patriots weren't at 4, you could be looking at 8, 9, 10 for Campbell
and
instead.
We'll go bigger picture. If Shedeur Sanders doesn't go 3 to the Giants, there's a very good chance that he doesn't go in the first round.
Right.
Like, that's how much it can be. Now, it's a little different for a quarterback because there's probably only 3 options.
Right.
You're going from 3 is 1 option, 9 to the Saints is 2 option, and then probably 21 to the Steelers.
Yeah, the Steelers seems like
3.
But the Campbell example is a perfect example of after Hunter and Carter, it's really what do you need?
Right.
Yep.
Because all of them are so lumped together.
Yeah, I mean, this is the point I'm trying to make the whole draft, is that the positional need, and I'd also put positional value in there as well, is going to determine a lot of these picks for teams. Like, I don't think that you can sit here and say definitively that Will Campbell is a worse player than Mason Graham, or Will Campbell is a worse player than Tyler Warren. Like, I think you can make cases for either one of those guys. I think it's kind of a coin flip.
I agree.
So they said that, this is the first draft that there hasn't been a first-round trade.
Trending that way, yeah.
Yeah.
This is as late as it's
as it's been.
gone.
And
Every team is slated to pick in their original spot.
And I'm thinking if there is a trade and it doesn't happen among that first 3 picks, there may not be a trade in this first round because everything is just, they're so lumped together. There's no reason.
Yeah, that's one of those, if we were doing this show, say, in, Arizona or, Denver, you'd know the specific players that you're looking for and the teams that are ahead of you that you might want to get in front of. I don't know right now who would be so
But is there
valuable.
anyone that is that good that you'd be willing to give up assets to get from this draft?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of smoke connecting Denver to Colson Loveland. Sean Payton calls that the joker position in his offense, the move tight end. And I think that they've put out there at least that they have sort of an infatuation with Colson Loveland, and they could be interested in moving up in the draft to make sure that they get Colson Loveland. But to Paul's point, I bet there are teams that have Loveland higher than Tyler Warren.
I think Schefter had that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
In his catch-all grab bag, he had some interesting things. Like he had one. I think he cited one specific GM that does not even have a first-round grade
On a quarterback.
for any of the quarterbacks.
Yeah,
correct. And then there was another one that said that Sanders does not have a first-round grade. But again, that doesn't really matter. I would argue that there have probably been a ton of quarterbacks chosen over the last 10 years that didn't have first-round grades, chosen in the first round. I'm not sure that all 6 of those guys last year had first-round grades. Maybe they did, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bo Nix didn't have a first-round grade, but he got taken in the first round. And so far, he looks like, a perfectly fine pick. I think quarterbacks often get drafted, ahead of their value for obvious reasons. And we'll see if that happens to Sanders or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, the other thing that I think Schefter had was one decision maker said definitively that Ward would have been 7 last year.
Yeah.
Behind all 6 of the guys that got taken.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that say? I mean, do you think there's any chance that Cleveland is smoke and mirrors, that they're not going to pick a quarterback?
Cleveland's not going to take a quarterback.
I mean, the first Tennessee.
Oh, Tennessee?
Tennessee.
I don't know. Sounds like everything is locked up at this point.
But do they feel like Cam Ward would be the 7th quarterback last year?
Yeah, but so I'm okay with that as long as he's good. Bo Nix was the 6th. He played pretty well.
Yeah.
So just because you fall behind other guys that were successful, I mean, the only one that didn't get to play was McCarthy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The other
Penix
5
didn't play a ton, but
the other 5 showed promise.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Atlanta, it's still.
No, he didn't play a lot.
He didn't play a lot.
He only played the last month of the
Right,
season. But
right.
he looked like he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that if you put Cam Ward in last year's draft, he's at least in the conversation with the Penix, McCarthy, Nix tier. You could rank him.
My guess is he would have went ahead of
Bo Nix.
Yeah,
rank him however you want to rank him once you get into that tier. He's clearly not in the Caleb, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May tier, but I still think he would have been in the conversation with the rest of those guys in last year's draft. So, what would he have been quarterback 7? To some eyes, he would have been, right? To some evaluators, he would have been, but I think to others, he probably would have been the 5th best quarterback, or the 4th, maybe not over Penix. I think Penix was probably the one guy that would have been tough for him to grade out higher than.
So, again, you've said it before. It's not a star draft. It's a starter draft. I said it's a blue-collar draft. Let's just get to work. As I started looking into these players, I've only done a handful of positions so far. There's depth. There's depth at positions, especially edge. I mean,
to your point, I think because this is probably 2 classes at least worth of prospects coming out because of COVID. This is sort of the. I think you can make a case that the undrafted free agents even will have
Yeah.
There'll be some talent.
There's a good mix of
There'll be
guys
some
that who
talent
have been there for 6 years, and then
Right.
guys who are true juniors.
And that's why, like, I've been teasing Evan a little bit about the whole starters. Like I don't really care if they're starters. I care if they deserve to be starters. Like, there's no doubt the Patriots are going to draft guys. I heard on one of my stations this morning, you know, they need to come away with 3 or 4 starters. And I would just push back on that. No, they need to come away with 3 or 4 good starters.
Yeah.
That you're going to be able to do, you're going to want to give a second contract to, that you're going to want to have be the
Right.
nucleus of your team moving forward.
Right.
You know, like, this is, I don't mean any disrespect, but I'm going to put just names like of guys who have started, like last year, like Daniel Aquale and Jelani Tavai, and serviceable players, hardworking players, but you need to do better than that.
Yeah, they start by default.
Right. And that
You want somebody who
They
beats
need to
somebody
take-
out who
Yeah.
is
those 2
Yeah.
third-round picks that the Patriots have, at 69 and 77, can they find 2 guys that are worthy of displacing the people they're going to replace them like that, but they're worth it?
yeah.
That would be a home run.
Yeah, I would throw 106 in there too. Like, I think all 4
Sure.
of those picks,
Top 100 pick, as you
top
taught me
100
last
pick.
week.
Yeah.
I think all 4 of those picks have a lot of value in a draft like this, because there is a lot of depth, to Fred's point, in this class in general. And this is a draft, nerds draft. This is a draft that day 2 is probably the most important day of the
Yeah.
draft. Who the Patriots take at 4 overall, they're going to get a good player. Whether it's Campbell, whether it's Genty, whoever it is, they're going to get a good player at 4 overall.
Membu, according to you.
Membu, Jalen Walker, whoever.
I'm surprised you want Membu.
I want Campbell. I have Campbell graded higher, but I hear the argument for Membu. He's got the requisite measurables. He's a great athlete, basically the same level of athlete in the combine as Will Campbell was.
But he's never played left tackle.
He's never played left tackle, but there are examples of guys that have never played left tackle in college
And
that
just
have
so
flipped.
you know,
I know there is,
but-
but don't you think that's as much, if not a bigger risk than Will Campbell's arm measurement?
I would
Sure,
say
but
it's
I think
I would say it's similar.
They can kind of cancel each other out to me.
Yeah.
Well, but the other part of it is they're going to need a right tackle too. Like, Morgan
Yes.
Moses is a stopgap. He's
No, I
34
know.
years old.
I know.
So if they thought that Membu was that much better than Campbell, I could see Evan's argument and just say, well, he's a better player. We're going to take him. Even if he plays right tackle and I got to patch it together for another year, I'm going to have my right tackle of the future. That's okay. But if Campbell is better than Membu, then you take Campbell.
Yeah.
He's a left tackle.
He's got a little bit of a higher ceiling. I think Campbell has a higher floor and is probably a little bit more pro ready right now to step in as a rookie compared to Membu. But I think Membu's his length, his wingspan, his athleticism, all of the requisite measurables that he brings to the table probably give him a little bit of a higher ceiling at tackle specifically.
My plan B for this draft, plan A is Campbell. Plan B is, believe it or not, Tyler Warren, and then try like hell to get back in the first round and take somebody like Josh Connerly.
If you're going to do that, I would rather take Genty.
So I like your plan.
And I think that the thing that doesn't get talked enough about is the lack of coaching that the offensive line has had over the last few years on this team. And I think that's going to make a big, big difference. I think it's going to give a chance for Caleb Williams to have a shot here.
I believe that's Caden Wallace.
Caden Wallace.
Yeah.
I'm mixing up the quarterback for the Bears. But, I think that coaching has been lacking here. And we've said it before, you don't need 5 studs on the offensive line if they're well coached. And I think the environment here over the last few years was terrible. I think the coaching was subpar, and I think that's really hurt the offensive line. I think hopefully that will be corrected this year with Doug Marrone. And whether it's Will Campbell or Josh Connerly, they're going to get good coaching. And that's going to give them a shot to be good players.
I think it's a fair argument. I think that the two things why not Genty at that point? I would just take Genty over Tyler Warren. But second to that, they tried this last year, trying to trade back up into the first round.
You need a partner
to get the run at tackle or receiver. There's reports out there that it was both. One Some people say it was for a tackle. Some people say it was for a receiver. But they were targeting a position to move up to do this last year. And at the end of the day, they couldn't get the trade done.
Right.
So you run that risk.
You do.
But I think between Connerly, Ursery, and Simmons, there are 3 viable tackle options in that 20 to 40 range that you could probably get your hands on.
I like
would
Simmons,
just go
but he may not
Genty.
be able to play right away, right?
Yeah, and his
They
knee
say he
is
probably won't be
iffy.
cleared until August.
Yeah.
For football. So that's
Yeah.
tough for a rookie. to
I think
miss
we're
the whole-
talking mid-season before you see Josh Simmons at best, because once he's cleared, then he's got to ramp it back up, and he's got to get in football shape and get coached and get
It's
ready.
nice that we can talk to Fred about these guys now because he's done his research. He's got the back of the envelope.
A little bit.
I can tell that he likes himself some Tyler Warren. He's mentioned him a couple
I just
times.
think I'm just looking at needs on this team and impact, and I think he could make an immediate impact. I'm not saying he can be Bowers from the Raiders.
He's not that kind of player.
Yeah.
Different kind of tight end.
But I think he can make an immediate impact on this offense.
Yeah, he definitely could. I think that the questions that I've had with Tyler Warren the whole time are like, what is his carrying trait? Like, what is his elite carrying trait? He's good at a lot of different things.
He's just a football player.
He's I would even say great at some of them. He's a really good blocker. He's a really physical receiver down the field and at the catch point. He's got some versatility, certainly, to move around the formation and play from different spots. He even played wildcat quarterback some at Penn State. But
he's a football player.
But what is the one thing that you look at and you say, wow? With Genty, there's an obvious one. His contact balance and his ability to break tackles is just next level. Like with Warren, I just worry about the jack of all trades, master of none thing a little bit.
Did you watch any? They had a draft special kind of thing on Genty over the weekend on ESPN. Do you watch any of the high school highlights?
I'm sure
there's
Derrick
one
Henry
particular broken tackle. It's not even just the the production, but he gets when you get your legs sort of chopped out from under you and you just go down like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
So he got hit and got knocked off his legs, but as he was doing it, he spun. And he was able to contort his body all the way around, and he stayed on his feet. He put the hand down, and he remained on his feet, despite the tackler really knocking his pins right out from under him. It was, to your point about his ability to break tackles and play through contact, it was, I know it was high school, and he was obviously so much better than the guys he's playing against, but he did play high school football in Texas.
He's also doing it against Oregon and Penn State also, so it's not like it's just those teams. Yeah, he had more yards after contact than any other running back.
Next leading rusher in the country.
Had totally rushing yards.
Yeah.
He had it more after contact than anybody else.
Yep. It was over 1,700, and the next leading rusher was 1,600.
Yeah, 1,900.
Total.
Yeah. So if you're ruling out the tackles, if you're taking Campbell and Membu out of it and you're forgetting about position of need, I just don't know how you don't make the case.
You could make a
Genty
strong
at
argument
that
that the next best player after Carter and Hunter is Genty.
Yeah.
Now, I would not necessarily want to draft him. I would go Jalen Walker. But I can make an argument for Warren. I can make an argument for Genty. Certainly all those guys. That's what I think the intrigue of this draft starts with the Patriots because I think people are pretty confident that the top 3 picks are going to go in some order.
Yeah.
Ward, Hunter, Carter. But what happens next?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people could have different opinions on.
I mean, if Genty ends up on the Patriots, I'm not going to be complaining.
And I have I'm typecast, and rightly so, as the running backist. I'm sort of anti-running, but I do feel for them. I've heard a lot of people say, Patriots can't take him. They don't have the offensive line. They're not in the situation. That's like a cherry on the sundae kind of a pick, like Saquon Barkley to Philly puts them over the top. Well, that's great, but then I hear people say stuff like, well, if I have all those other things, what do I need the running back with the 4th overall pick for?
Right.
It's never the running back's time. I feel bad for
Remember
the position.
when running backs were always locks for the first round back in the day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're kind of in the middle because the teams that have taken running backs in the recent past in the top 10, the Giants with Saquon, the Panthers with McCaffrey. Neither one of those teams had a Drake May, right? So it's not apples to apples because when the Giants drafted Barkley, they had a 37-year-old Eli Manning. It's not Drake May.
Right.
When the Panthers drafted McCaffrey, they had Cam at the end of Cam's run in Carolina. So the Patriots at least have Drake May to elevate that ceiling of the offense. But it's also not the Detroit Lions taking Jahmyr Gibbs, because the Lions already had Penny Sewell, and they already had Jared Goff, and they already had Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they already had Aiden Hutchinson on defense. Like, they already had other blue-chip players on their roster that was already ascending at that point. So Gibbs was the cherry on top to the sundae in Detroit. So the Patriots are kind of like right in the middle. They have a young quarterback that's more promising than some of the other teams that have done it, but they're not quite the finished product that the Detroit Lions were. So it's a tough spot to be in, I think, to take Genty and make it work. They're not quite there, but you could see a path if they can do what Fred was talking about of trading back up and getting that tackle
just
with their
being
second
selfish. I think that might be the pick I would make, like for our purposes, like to talk about, to write about, for excitement, fan excitement. Like,
I hope
get a stud running back.
I hope in the early days of training camp, when it's just helmets and shorts, that he practices without a shirt on.
Okay, Mike.
I think that would be fun.
I do wonder about, I went back and watched some of his 2023, because everybody says, he was a much better receiver in 2023. You got to watch the pass catching tape from the season before. They used him more in that vein. He still averaged negative air yards per target in 2023 because they're throwing him screens.
Right.
He's 5'8", so like he's not like, when I hear the LaDainian Tomlinson comparisons, like LaDainian Tomlinson was a downfield receiving threat. Like he could run routes outside the backfield down the field. I don't think you're gonna get that out of Genty.
So I have this is a total aside, just this Patriot centric now, because that's, I would say, most Patriots fans, media guys, have put pass catching back is a significant need. It's something that's probably going to get addressed maybe late day 2, but if not in day 3.
Josh wrote that.
Right? Why is Antonio Gibson not an option for that?
Yeah.
This is a guy who was a college wide receiver. Why is he not an option to be a Josh McDaniels pass catching back?
It's a great question. I don't know. I've asked that question a million times too about Gibson. That's what he's touted as. Like, to your point, he was a college receiver.
That's what he was in Washington.
That's literally what he is. I don't know. I think maybe they're looking for somebody that can do a little bit more of both, of volume on early downs and catch the ball out of the backfield, more to push Stevenson, I would think, than Gibson.
The more I've been thinking about it, because I hear a lot of people talk about Trevor Etienne. I was talking to Mike Reese, my good buddy, yesterday, and Mike brought him up as a guy that would make some sense. And I agree. That's what he was at Georgia. He's a good, versatile back that can get out of the backfield, catch the ball in that traditional style. Why is no one really talking about Gibson as an option in that regard? It just sort of came to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm not saying you can't have Gibson and, just like you can't have Shane Vereen and James White, once upon a time. You had those kinds of guys.
I mean, I'm hoping for a couple things with this offense. One, that Drake is that much better because it's his second year.
That's
and also,
the biggest one. Right
and
there.
again, Josh makes them that much better because I have no problem with AVP, but I think Josh is a better coordinator. And I think those two things elevate the guys that we had last year to be better. And so maybe this year a guy like Gibson does show you that. I don't know.
I think he showed me it last year.
Yeah.
Like that's
not enough though.
Well, because their offense stunk.
Exactly.
But not because of him. He didn't have the ability to be a pass-catching back.
That's my point.
But
I think he does. He was.
But the offense stunk because they couldn't block.
Yeah, he was squashed in that offense. He didn't have. He wasn't given the opportunity to show off what he could do.
Yeah, but I guess I agree with everything you're saying. I think the biggest key would be you need Drake May to make the year 2 jump.
Yeah.
But the problems with the offense last year, to me, started in you can say I liked Alex Van Pelt, I didn't like him. I didn't like the play
the problem
call.
started years ago.
It was all about their inability to block anybody.
Yeah.
And if that's the case this year again, I don't care what Josh McDaniels does.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that much better.
Well, I add Doug Marrone into that mix as I started the show.
No, but I'm saying if they can't block anybody, I don't care who's coaching.
I know. Well, no, but I'm hoping the coaching helps that.
Yeah.
It just
can't go out and block for him.
Yeah, I have a tough time getting their with the improvement on the offensive line without a real investment at left tackle. Like, if they come out of this draft with one of those left tackles, even at the top of the second round, an Ursery, a Connerly, someone like that, I would feel okay. They have a young guy in the pipeline.
And if you tell me that whoever they come out with, like you said, well, that's a vast improvement over last year. Like, Ursery would be an improvement over Vidarian Lowe.
Yeah.
And DeMontre Jacobs.
You would, yeah.
And so now you have Morgan Moses and Ursery or Connerly or Campbell.
Yeah.
That should be an upgrade. So, like, whether the coaching is better or not, you have better players blocking.
Sure.
Yeah.
You should be better because of that.
Yep.
And now you have to hope Drake May has made the progression. And, we just had DeMario Douglas in here. Maybe he does that Josh McDaniels thing. This is where I would put coaching into it, because I think that the system that Josh wants to run is going to accentuate that. Maybe he turns out to be, more of a volume kind of guy.
Yep.
And then, this gets us to something else that I don't know if you caught this. Evan and I talked about this off air a little bit, that whole Adam Schefter grab bag of the draft, bunch of tidbits.
I didn't see
He had some young players around the league that could be on the trading block, and he had some veterans around the league that could be on the trading block. As an example, for a veteran.
So he had Booty, right?
He had Kayshon Boutte as a young guy that might be expendable for the Patriots, which tells me that there's probably some smoke where there's fire there. Evan and I kind of agree that I think it's a little too quick, if that's the case. If they're looking to move on from him now, I don't know what's going to happen Thursday, Friday, more likely Friday. Might change my mind, but why would he be do you think, the first one?
Well, if Bootie's the guy that gets you the asset that allows you to move back up into the first round, then
yeah, well, okay. Like, what are we doing?
Well, like, what if you can get a third for Booty?
You can't.
Okay.
Like,
then I think it's too fast.
But that's what I
think it's too quick.
But let's just operate under the premise, and you know what? Let me stop being so snarky. Let's operate under the assumption that you're getting a day 3 pick swap for Kayshon Boutte. Like, I don't think they have a wide receiver that they could deal that could get you a 3rd round pick. I don't think they have one.
No.
So let's just make that assumption.
Then I think it's too fast.
Yeah, and that was what Evan and I were kind of saying. Not that I don't think either one of us is in love with Kayshon Boutte, but he played last year. He made some plays. I think, Evan, you put it like,
I think he
even
improved.
if you stick him on the outside and just have him run go routes, every once in a while he got behind everybody.
But don't you think that's why he ended up in the grab bag, is because other teams are like, he's not that bad?
No, I think the Patriots are looking to move on for him. That's how you end up in the grab bag.
But why?
I don't know.
Could be a little bit of both, but
I think it's more he got a little attractive, and he's the guy that the Patriots might be able to get something for.
I wonder,
maybe they'll trade a 5th round pick for a 7th round pick and move. Like Evan said, can you get another 5th round pick out of it? So they have 171 right now in the 5th round. Can you get another 5th round pick? But 144 and 171 they have.
Yeah.
Maybe you can get another one.
Yeah.
What I wonder with Boutte is just he's had some hiccups along the way here, and is he just not a program guy? And are we doing that whole thing with Kayshon Boutte where they just don't feel like they're going to be able to get him to buy into the Vrabel program?
Maybe it's as simple as that.
I just look at what he did last year. It wasn't anything eye-popping, but he had 600 yards last year. That's 600 more yards than the 2 rookies had last year. So, like, why would Kayshon Boutte be the odd man out of him, Polk, and Baker? Unless it's just simply because he has more value than those 2 guys, and you're really buying low, selling low on those other 2.
Yep, that would be the argument.
I just don't really see that.
You'd be selling about as high on Boutte as you probably are going to get, and the other 2 guys have no value at all because they did nothing as rookies.
Right, but I look at the way that Josh McDaniels has typically used the outside receiver. Take Randy Moss out of it, and maybe
Brandon LaFell.
Brandon Cooks for a year, right? Brandon LaFell, those types of players. Like, Boutte can do that. Like, Boutte can run go routes on the outside and get behind Derek Stingley for 50-yard touchdown once a game, right? Like, he can do those types of things. And if you're not going to run the offense through the X receiver, through the outside receiver, and that's not going to be the volume role in your offense, I think that he can be the viable 3rd guy in that pecking order. If it's Stephon Diggs and Pop Douglas and Booty, or it's Stephon Diggs and a draft pick and Booty. Like I feel comfortable with Booty being a low volume outside receiver in what we know as the traditional McDaniels offense. So unless it's for a great value, I'm not ready to drive Kayshon Boutte to the airport just yet. Like, I think that he has a role that you can envision on this team as a decent X. Like,
do you agree with us? Or?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought it was odd, like even if you were going to say, okay, well, the rookies deserve another year to see, or at least an off season.
Yeah.
To see if they've matured and whatever.
Polk, Baker.
Like wouldn't like Bourne be the guy to go?
I think so, but again,
because Kayshon Boutte, you could make an argument that year 3 he's an ascending player. Kendrick Bourne to me is what he is.
No, I know.
At this point in his career, he's not going to get much better or worse.
That's
than
why
he has
Boutte
been.
might be the guy that's more attractive to other teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think that guy. Again, you're getting a day 3 pick. He's a 6th round pick. You're getting a day 3 pick for him.
I think that's the only argument, though, is that he has the most trade value out of anybody in that room.
Right.
Because he's a young ascending player.
He might, but I don't think
ascending is.
Do you know? But
generously.
I think he probably does. I think Fred's right. He probably does have the most. But it's like, Will Campbell is the 4th pick in this draft.
No, I know what you're saying.
It's
a low bar.
He has the most, but I don't think he has much value. I would agree with Fred that he probably has the most value out of those guys.
Yeah, I get it. I just look at him as different. Like, they don't have a ton of outside receivers, like true outside receivers. Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Polk, Stephon Diggs, Pop Douglas. Like, those guys are all kind of redundant to one another. And Diggs is certainly not coming off the field once he's ready to go. So it's Bourne, it's Polk, it's those are the guys that I personally, if you're going to move somebody, I feel like those are the guys that you would probably move, but they probably have the least amount of value.
Yep. All right, time for a break.
Sure.
And then when we come back, your calls and emails here on Patriots Unfiltered. Whether you're in the game or betting on the game, you'll need a game plan. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the New England Patriots, provides you with everything you need to build your personal betting game plan so you can get in on all the action while practicing safe bets. Visit DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming to learn more about all the safe betting tools DraftKings has to offer. Hope is here, 800-327-5050 or gamblinghelplinema.org. Must be 21 plus. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com. Physically present in Massachusetts. See DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources.
Isn't it time to get exactly what you want? Welcome to Red Hot Deal Days from Verizon, where you get your pick of our best deals. Like My Plan, where you can pick the perks you want and save on every one. For limited time, bring your own phones to a Verizon store and you can get My Plan for our best price ever. Get exactly what you want in your phone plan and only pay for what you need. Bring your phones to your Verizon store today and get My Plan. These deals won't last. It's your Verizon.
With FedEx One Rate, you can ship to your student for a simple, predictable flat rate. Send a box full of home-baked treats that say, "Your father and I miss you." Or send a box full of instant noodles that says, "Your father and I would like you to stop asking us for money." Either way, one rate fits all. FedEx One Rate. 2-day shipping, one flat rate. Starting at $14.50. Visit FedEx.com/OneRate for details. Exclusions apply.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Patriots Unfiltered Extras. Matisse Bauman, Alex Francisco, and Chris Cassidy, where we read leftover emails that you guys have sent in from the previous show. So, guys, we've some good stuff here. On the show before, we had Hunter Henry. So we'll start with an email directly to Hunter Henry, okay?
Oh, nice.
From Anthony. Hunter Henry, big fan. I just want to say how thankful I am for you. You brought a lot of joy these past couple of years and have been one of the few great bright spots. Thank you for always showing up, and you are the next jersey I get.
Wow.
That's really wholesome.
Very
wholesome.
Isn't that really wholesome?
We'll relay that message.
He was great on the show. It's good we can get the players,
He's been great the last couple of years.
I mean,
He's been all we had.
He really has been one of the main bright spots this season.
Yeah.
Or not this season, but just
Last
all the
two
seasons he's been.
seasons.
Yes, sorry. Really really dynamic player. You really throw the ball to him at any point. He's going to make a play. And that's what you need.
No, there is a point if you're like on the content team and you're in the end zone within like a 10-yard, there was a good chance Hunter Henry's going to catch the ball.
Yeah, and you were just tracking Hunter to see where he ended up, getting your phone ready.
Just stay with him the whole time. All right. Subject title: Discuss amongst yourselves. Game of Thrones, Starbucks coffee cup. Darren from St. Stephen.
So I walked into Thursday's shows late. I was at a community event, and I walk in, and they're literally talking about Game of Thrones, and I was like, I don't know how we got here, but I'm glad we're here. I was ready to go.
The theme of the show was just show endings, and then they started talking about Game of Thrones in bulk.
Yeah, I mean,
so specifically, they want us to talk about the Starbucks.
I assume
that ended up in the show
in the final
by
cut,
accident.
By accident, in Middle Ages, there's a Starbucks cup.
Maybe there was a Starbucks there.
I mean,
there was not a Starbucks.
You
I
don't
can
know
confidently say that there was not a Starbucks in King's Landing. Two, this just kind of goes back to what we all touched on the show, was that this last 2 seasons or whatever it was got rushed because the showrunners were really trying to get a move on so that they could go do Star Wars.
Which they never even got.
And then they got fired from Star Wars anyway, so it was all for nothing. And it just... like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, the level of just not caring that they had with this show that, like, I can't remember a show that just, like, time stopped when Game of Thrones was on. It was the biggest cultural phenomenon of the
22?
Yeah.
Whenever
21,
it ran
21,
into. Yeah,
21.
obviously it spanned from the 10s to the 20s. But
Yeah. I mean, the show itself was amazing. I am not a season-ending hater. I don't think it was that bad.
It was awful.
People can hate on it.
I think people are dramatic.
Rushed?
I'm
yes.
in the middle
I think
of
it ended
guys.
correctly.
Literally and
I think it ended
figuratively.
correctly. Like, the show needed to end with Bren.
I think the big thing is that
it made sense.
They did a table read, and I forget the character's name. He threw the script in disgust when they did the table read.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it just goes back to it got rushed.
Yep.
And George R. Martin, if he didn't get... I'm not going to say fat and lazy. He's already pretty large. But he got too rich, and he was no longer motivated to write the books. And when you get ahead of the books, like, there's so much world building that happens that it was inconsistent.
And now we got Direwolves recreated.
They are back
before he finished the book. But let's get to the next email because there's some more Game of Thrones in here. Email from Ryan from Watertown. Hi, Patriots Unfiltered gang. I'm a big fan. Patriots fan since birth and PU fan since the Dark Ages, post-Brady era. Love what you guys do and especially love what all you bring a different perspective to the game and the team. My quick Game of Thrones take is that from Season 1 to Season 8, Episode 3 of the show is incredible. Season 8, Episodes 4 and 6 were some of the worst 3 episodes of television in human history, and the writers should have to take a 10-year hiatus from the entertainment industry just to think about how they let us down. I agree with them there.
Fair.
I've got a question for you guys. I'm going to list some wide receivers that could potentially be on our roster, and I want to hear from each of you. Who makes your ideal 25 to 26 six-man wide receiver room? Considering Diggs and Mac Hollins are locks, here are the picks I list below. Current Patriots: Pop Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Polk, Kayshon Boutte, Javon Baker. Potential free agents are Tyler Lockett on a 1-year team-friendly deal, Elijah Moore, 3 years, $11 million, and then potential draft picks are Travis Hunter, Tet McMillan, Egbuka, Jaden Higgins, and Trey Harris. I think it's safe to say the wide receiver room is still wide open, and any of these guys could be in the mix. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Thanks, guys.
I'll jump right into it, I guess. I would say with Diggs and Hollins being locks, in that sense, if Hunter's available, if Egbuka's available, if they take one of those first or second rounders type of guys, I think that is when they will become locks. And if that happens, you have to look at the guys.
So 3 and up is a lock.
Yeah, 3 and up is a lock. In my opinion, Boutte's a lock.
Yep.
I think Pop's a lock.
Yep.
I think Polk is a lock.
Yep.
So that's 3 right there. You have like the fringe guys are Baker and
six.
KB.
You reached 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the fringe guys are Baker and KB.
I agree. I love Tyler Lockett. I think he's a little on the older side, but I think we got our vets with Hollins and Diggs.
Yeah.
Elijah Moore, he was a high draft pick, hasn't really hit his stride. I don't really see it there. So I think what you listed is spot on.
Yeah, I like it too. It's just I go about it, okay, is it my pipe dream list with Hunter even available for us, or do I play it more realistically? Going more realistically, I think that's a scenario where Kendrick Bourne is maybe still around,
For sure.
because how do you get Hunter? It seems like further and further of a possibility with each passing day.
I think also like some of the guys we listed could maybe be a trade candidate, because I think Kendrick Bourne still has a lot to give. So,
For sure.
Booty.
I do too, and that's why I'm not necessarily willing to turn the page. Whereas, like, I know that I feel like a lot of people feel like Polk is a lock, but like me personally, I just haven't seen a ton out of him, and I know that it's only going to be his second year, but I don't know.
I think it's crazy.
That's I think the only logic behind it.
I think you'll find out some stuff pretty quickly within the first 2 weeks of camp.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. Fair.
But all right, guys, thank you for being on the PU Extras. Be sure to send in more emails to podcast@patriots.com, because if they don't get read on the show, we'll read them on the halftime show. So let's get back to Patriots Unfiltered.
And now, great moments in history.
So I do the thing where you see somebody in their car, they're about to leave, so you pull over, put your signal on, and you sit there. So this guy in a big Tesla comes up right in front of me, starts giving me the hands, like, what? I'm like, Moshe, go around. He's like, he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't go around. Finally, he decides, I'll go around. So he goes around, but then he decides to do a pull-up, roll-down. He pulls up next to me.
Imagine that. He pulls the pull-up,
He
roll down
does a
on
pull-up,
you,
roll down, and pulls down the window. So he starts talking to me, and I just say, keep effing driving, just like that. He had the kids in the back seat. I don't care. But I just said, keep effing. He goes, well, we'll talk later. I go, no, we won't. But
ended it.
That was it.
That's another great moment from
All right. Fun in
And
parking
I'm the one
lots.
that has issues in parking
Fun in
lots.
parking
Yeah.
lots. Oh, I was so annoyed at that person.
He does the pull-up, roll-down.
Pull-up, roll-down. All right. We're talking draft. We're going to take some calls, emails. I know everyone's been patiently waiting to get their 2 cents in. So let's start with Patty and Agawam. What's up, Patty?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone.
Patty. I guess he's not there. All right. These people have been holding on a long time. I don't blame him. Dave in Florida. What's up, Dave?
Hey, guys. How's it
David
going?
in Florida. He's gone.
Can you hear me?
All right. Christian in L.A.
It's time to
Everyone's
push
favorite
away from
caller.
the table.
What's up, Christian?
Hey, you guys.
And he's
good afternoon. Thank you
Are you
for
there?
taking my call from.
It might be the.
he's gone.
Might be the volume.
Yeah, might be.
It could be. But anyway, David in Bethlehem writes in
He'll
at
call back.
podcast@patriots.com. He says, Paul and Evan are glibly underestimating the difficulty of switching from right tackle to left tackle. Most fail. Try shaving left-handed. Fred Astaire was a great dancer. Ginger Rogers did everything he did backwards and wearing heels. Likely Membo has never played left tackle because he can't. Do what you do well.
I just want to emphatically state that I have no interest in drafting Membu and moving him to left tackle. I would draft Membu as the right tackle.
At 4?
I said, no, I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I
but
know.
I'm saying if I were to, like
Yeah.
Evan had him in his mock draft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I thought that Membu was better than Campbell, so I want to take the better player, I would take him, and he'd be my right tackle of the future.
So my thing-
because Morgan Moses is 34 years old.
My thing a lot with tackles is a lot the same with defensive backs. If you're a tackle and you can play left tackle, you play left tackle. If you're a defensive back and you play corner, you play corner.
Can't argue with that.
See what I'm saying?
I never said it was easy or like that it was a shoo-in that he could do it. So I don't
No.
know where that's coming from. I never said that, but I can see the argument for it. Like if they draft him and they play him at left tackle as a rookie and it goes great, then great. You have your left tackle. If it goes poorly or not so great, then you
And
flip him
guys
back
have-
to right.
and guys have done
like,
it. So
there's just a case for it. I'm
so
not saying
this
it's
is why I would
easy.
say, and again, if he could play left tackle, you tried to make the switch and he could do it, fine. But I'm okay if he can't because I need a right tackle too.
Right.
That was my point. But there's a list of guys that played one side or the other. Joe Alt played left tackle throughout his college career. He played right tackle last year for the Chargers.
At an all-pro level.
Yeah. Well,
So, like,
I think, but that's like going from corner to safety. That happens a lot.
No.
But rarely you go
But
from
it's-
safety to corner.
No. But I'm saying tackles switch sides. Most can't do it.
Yeah, I
Some
know.
can.
I know, but it's
Joe Alt did it
but
last year
I think-
seamlessly.
I think it's easier to
left
go from
to right
left-
is not any easier than right
I
to
think
left.
it is. I think it is.
It might be considered an easier, like a less important position.
I think it's.
But it's still, everything is backwards.
It is. But the mistakes aren't as glaring. I think it's a little easier to transition from left to right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of guys that have done it from. I'm getting my right and left confused. From right to left, Tristan Wirfs is probably the best and most recent one.
There's always exceptions.
Yeah, Tyron Smith, Fred's guy, did it too. He played right tackle at USC, and then went and actually played right tackle to start in Dallas for a little bit, and then eventually went to left, just like Wirfs. Wirfs played 3 full years at right tackle for Tampa Bay.
Yep.
And then his 4th season, they chained him to left tackle. He was a first-team All-Pro last year at left tackle. You know, we talked to Doug Marrone, was it earlier this month, and he had a guy in New Orleans who did it. Jamal Brown, who was a first-round pick by the Saints. He played right tackle to start his career in New Orleans, and then they moved him to left, and he was a Pro Bowler at left tackle. So it's all I'm telling you is that it's been done. It's not
hold me to this
completely
one,
crazy.
but did Orlando Brown play right tackle at one point, and then
they're
changed to left tackle?
Very possible. The other one is Jedrick Wills with Cleveland, who played right tackle at Alabama and then played left tackle for the Browns.
And my bigger point, just again, if you have him evaluated greater than Campbell, the right-left thing wouldn't be my determining factor. It would be the better player. But I also would just say we've just given you a couple of examples of guys who switched sides and done it well. There are really no examples of guys with arms, and I won't say definitively as short as Will Campbell's because of the discrepancy between the combine numbers and the pro day numbers.
It don't upset me.
But there is no example of a guy who had 32 and 5/8 inch arms or shorter.
That's true.
That has succeeded at tackle
for 25
over
years.
the last 25 years.
Right, that's true.
If you evaluate the tape I come away from the tape saying Will Campbell's the better player. But if you evaluate the tape and say Membu's the better player, then to me, the right to left and the short arms cancel each other out. Like one is
That's
a right
kind of how I
tackle.
would feel about it. That's why I would say I'm comfortable with Membu being a right tackle. If it doesn't work with Campbell, he's a guard now.
Right.
To me, there's a big difference between filling the right tackle spot and then filling a guard spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think
now some would argue the other way. Again, my
Yeah.
buddy Mike Reese this morning said, well, even if he wants to do your double dip thing.
Yep.
So if you get Will Campbell at 4 and then are able to sort of squeak out Connerly or
but I don't want to double dip at the position.
Ursery, well, the worst case scenario is,
the worst case you get 2 guys who can't do it.
Well, yeah, I suppose that was a very Patriots.com comment right there. Worst case scenario is you get 2 All-Pros playing on the left side. No, one of them plays left tackle, one of them plays left guard, and your offensive line is okay for at least the next 5 years.
Yep. Nick in Boston writes in, to answer your question from earlier in the show, Patriots don't consider Gibson the answer as pass-catching back because he's a bad pass blocker, in my opinion.
That's a good point. That's a very good point, emailer.
I don't think this is a great pass blocking class, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, but he's right. I think Gibson does struggle a little bit. He had some good pickups, but he does struggle a little bit in that.
Separately, Todd McShay said yesterday that teams he's spoken to picking in the top 10 are happy that Will Campbell is the pick at 4, so better players fall to them. Please draft Membu, who is an actual tackle, or Genty. I know drafting a running back at the top of the draft is horrible, asset management, but at least he has a chance to be elite. The Giants are used as the main example of why drafting running back doesn't move the needle, but I think that argument is missing context. The year before the Giants drafted Saquon, their offense ranked 31st, and then it ranked 16th in Saquon's rookie season. The offense was average because they had a diminished quarterback, but Saquon still provided a large boost.
Well, I think Eli Manning was hurt the year before and then came back and played.
Don't let facts get in the way. But actually, I don't remember because Eli was very durable, but he played through injury.
He had one season where he missed a lot of games, or missed some games, and it might have not been that one.
Because I thought McAdoo ended his streak, our buddy Ben McAdoo.
Oh, yeah?
He had a consecutive game-started streak, and then he decided to bench him late in the last year.
No, okay, I had my years mixed up, but I don't – the emailer might be right about the rankings. I don't know if he's using yards, points, whatever, but I don't think that's the point, is we're not trying to be the 16th best offense in the NFL.
And I don't really care what the numbers – I want to win games, and the Giants didn't win games.
Alex, I don't know what you're saying. Just say it.
Phones are good.
Oh, good. Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay. I'm just going to go to them.
I would just go, does the guy lead you to win games?
Right.
And I'm not saying don't take Genty, because he could help your offense. If he's the best player, then more power to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think the argument for Genty, other than him just being the best player, is that you would think that there could be some sort of gravity of him being on the field where you get more 7 and 8 man boxes. You get guys that bite a little bit harder on play action. Like, he's the vocal point of the game plan, like those types of things. Now, for the most part, the numbers would say that doesn't really
I should
happen,
know the answer to this question. Ball security issues with him at all in college?
He had 4 fumbles last year. I mean, the game against Penn State wasn't good, but I think a lot of that was I'm trying to break 6 tackles to make this run happen, and he gets stripped like towards the end of the run, kind of like Ramondre.
Yeah, that's what they said.
But I
still not good.
I wouldn't say it's maybe a small C concern. Yeah.
All right, people are back on the phones. Let's go to David in Florida. What's up, David?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
So I had 2 things here. Firstly, I wanted to apologize to Paul for hearing that you had to walk in on Fred hard at work today. So the second thing is that I've actually, speaking of Paul, I've realized that I've started to talk like him a little bit when it comes to some of this draft stuff. When I'm seeing people online saying, I like Will Campbell, just not at 4, or I like this player, just not, and then I just respond with, so you don't like him.
You don't like him. Yep, that's well done.
I completely agree with that. That is such a good response to some of these arguments, and I feel like a lot of people have to hear that. So thanks, Paul.
I'm glad I could help. Yeah, and I do get there's some nuance
David,
to that line of thought. I think Will Campbell's going to be a really good football player, but I'm not sure he's worth the 4th pick. Now, I do think this draft is kind of unique. I think in this draft, you can make an argument that he's the 4th best player.
Is this all because of COVID, this draft? Just the way things kind of fell out?
I mean, I don't...
In terms of...
Smarter people
who's
than
available in this draft? Like, a lot of guys, it's almost like that bridge, like, after this year, COVID's in the rearview mirror. Like, this is the last effects of COVID.
Well, that's supposed to be true.
Yeah.
This is about the end of the extra years. There's a lot of 6-year guys in this draft.
But that affected college rosters, and that affects who's available,
Yeah, no, it probably could be. Yeah, I didn't really think of it in those terms, Fred, but that's logical. What you're saying is that's why there's more guys that haven't come out yet. That's why, maybe guys didn't commit as much. Maybe the talent's more spread out. Or, I don't know.
Yeah.
Could be a lot of factors.
Let's go to Christian in L.A. What's up, Christian?
All right. Hey, you guys. Good afternoon. I see you having some sort of phone issues, which happens. So thank you guys for taking my call here from L.A., where it's sunny and finally getting warm. Yeah.
Okay.
So before I go to football, I want to cut my haters off and say the only reason why I mentioned Wait For Me last week and the other company was because it was in context of the call. It wasn't me being super L.A., as I've now heard. So that's that. But on to football. When we were talking yesterday, they were saying how there's such a deep class at defensive end, such a deep class at running back. We were wondering, does that really have an impact on the league in terms of if everyone gets a good defensive end? Does that level up the competition in that position? And then next year there's a run on left tackles to sort of, cancel out the run of defensive ends, or there's a run on running backs. There's the next year they do linebackers, say to cancel that out. Do you guys think that really actually has an impact on the league when they have a run or a deep class?
Well, I mean, deep, it's all relative. I mean, when we say it's a deep class, I mean, there's good players. I mean, they're not all Aaron Donald or, Lawrence Taylor. If you had a run on those guys, that affects the landscape of the league. But I don't think we're going there. There's going to be some good players that come out of this draft that will make teams, and it will help those teams. But I don't know if it's altering. It's So
it doesn't shift the league when there's a deep class at one specific position.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
No, I think it's more about this draft, and you have to look at it and say Ashton Genty might be the best running back, but is the drop off from Ashton Genty to the running back we could get on day 2 bigger or smaller than Will Campbell to the next best tackle that we're going to get on day 2.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the arguments or the discussions come into play about who they're going to take at 4 overall is, well, Will Campbell might not be as good of a player as Ashton Genty, but we can get, R.J. Harvey on day 2 of the draft at running back, and there is no equivalent to R.J. Harvey at the tackle position. The drop-off at tackle is significant. So we have to, we'd rather lean in. I think the same thing about edge rusher. Jalen Walker is a good player, but you can find good edge rushers in this class probably into day 3 of the draft. So do you need to take the edge rusher at 4, or can you take the position of need at tackle and then take the edge rusher on day 2?
I don't think there's ever been a draft where so many great players from one position came out of that draft that it altered what other teams had to do the next year to combat
and that I don't think you can control where the talent is going to be sort of situated.
Right.
I have heard a lot of different draft guys talk about they have the most amount of running backs in this draft with draftable grades since 2008 or something. I don't know. I've heard some different years. But that doesn't mean next year there will be a glut of off-ball linebackers, that are going to be ready-made to offset those running backs.
Right.
I don't think you control where the talent is going to be concentrated from draft to draft.
Right.
Now, multiple drafts string,
Sure.
for example, interior defensive line. We are in a what's the word, golden era of interior pass rushers. This is probably, Aaron Donald retired, so maybe that brings it down a slight notch. But, Chris Jones, Jalen Carter, those types of level players, it's just all throughout the league. There's great interior pass rushers. So now guards and centers are becoming a little bit more valuable than maybe they were 5 years ago.
Well, I would say that over multiple drafts, there was an alteration at quarterback in the AFC. All of a sudden you had Herbert and you had Mahomes and you had Josh Allen.
Lamar, yeah.
And that altered things, the structure in the AFC. But it's multiple years. It's usually not just 1 year.
But that's a good example. So the AFC right now has, a half dozen top flight quarterbacks. So if you're in the AFC, you're going to need to be able to play some pass defense.
Right.
But if the cornerbacks are not worthy of taking in the first round, you can't just say, well, I need a cornerback.
Right.
If they are, obviously that's usually a pretty deep position in any draft. There's a lot of defensive backs. But that's when you get in trouble if you say, well, I got to go up against, Mahomes, twice a year, and I got to find a way to, I can't just take Jeff Okudah at number 3 overall. I know Detroit took him and not anybody in the AFC West. But if he's not worthy of that pick, that's not a good pick, just because you need a corner to go against these high-flying passing attacks.
Eldred's in North Carolina. What's up, Eldred?
Hey, Alex. Hey, fellas. How y'all doing?
Good.
Question. Fred, I love you behind the envelope wide receivers. Dante Thornton is my guy. Evan should tell you that one. I've been saying that.
Who's the guy?
Dante Thornton from Tennessee.
Okay. He's on my envelope.
There's no question that's Eldred's guy.
Size and speed.
He made my envelope.
Oh. Look at this.
It's a good time to transition to the envelope.
The slow reveal right there.
Yeah. A question. Would you think somebody throw this up during the draft? Give a third for the Raiders left tackle if they trade him, and then let Carolina move up where you get a first and a second. Then you move down and get what you need. Would y'all do that, or would you stick and pick with your points you got, with your rounds you got, and I'll go from there? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Eldred.
Thanks, Big E.
Yeah.
I'm interested in Colton Miller. I don't know if you'd have to give up a third-round pick because you're going to have to give him a contract.
Yeah.
So that would lower, I would think, the draft compensation.
Yeah, it would certainly free them up at the top of the draft.
If he's available.
Yeah, I don't think there's any indication so far that he's available.
Right. That was on day one when he didn't show up, all these stories.
Well,
and you haven't heard anything since.
He's in a contract, snit with the Raiders, but that doesn't mean he's available.
Right. So anyway, we talked about the envelope. So here's an envelope, right? Here's the front of the envelope. In the envelope, we have something in the envelope.
Our lads.
And then you have the back of the envelope. So, but I've only done, these are only, we did wide receivers last week, so I only have really kind of 3 positions that I've really looked at for back of the envelope other than wide receiver. I started with the tackle. I didn't go into guards and centers. Who cares? I didn't get into that.
I'll do that for you.
So
okay, don't worry about
I
it.
just looked at tackles.
Center, not a
So I
position
have
of need
5
or
people on my back of the envelope. They may not all be that unknown or, but Ozzie Trapillo. I like him, BC.
So I
Heard
picked
a thing
him.
about him or two.
I picked him as a guy that could be a Patriot.
Yeah.
Like that by the end of the draft, so-and-so will be on the Patriots.
Yep.
He could be one of those.
6'8", 316. I have him as the heir to Moses.
Moses.
At right tackle, I have Logan Brown out of Kansas. He's a 6'6", 311. I called him a project. Never misses a game. He's solid. A lot of these tackles don't miss games,
Very athletic, very high upside, but you probably read this in the Beast maybe, but he had to transfer from Wisconsin. Let's just put it to you that way, for some issues that happened at the Wisconsin program.
Yep.
If that hadn't happened, it's one of those guys. Like if that hadn't happened, we're probably talking about him pushing the top 100 of this draft. He's going to get knocked a couple of rounds because of the past.
Things we do in our youth,
Yeah, got into it with a teammate a little bit.
Another left tackle, Miles Hinton, out of Michigan, 6'6", 325. I noted that he only has 1 flag in 2 years.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are really high on Miles Hinton. He's kind of one of those guys, highly touted out of high school. Went to a big blue blood program, Power 5 school, Power 4, whatever you call it. There's some day 3 buzz for Miles Hinton. That's for sure.
I can't read my own writing. Left tackle Jalen, is it Travis? Travis
Yep.
out of Iowa State.
Yeah.
Big dude.
Strong as an ox.
Big dude, like 6'8".
6'7", 6'8", 339.
Yeah, huge tackle. He's a little stiff, a little heavy-footed, but it's got all of the people moving and all that stuff checked.
Yep. And then finally, I have him at tackle or guard, Xavier Truss out of Georgia, 6'7", 318. He's Rhode Island guy.
Yeah, reminds me of McClendon, Warren McClendon, who also came from Georgia. Probably like a flex tackle guard. Probably a backup in the league, but can probably back up both spots. And those guys are valuable.
Yeah. So that's my tackle position. Then I did a couple of running backs. Obviously, Scadaboo's one. He's
I actually like your Scadaboo one.
Yeah.
There's some buzz about Scadaboo not having as many fans in the league as he does in the media.
Well, he's kind of a hardo.
And he's not.
I could totally see that.
He's not as, there's a lot of questions about his play speed and his explosiveness and how athletic he truly is and all that kind of stuff. So I'm actually really interested to see where he goes because I think he'll be a day 3 pick.
Day 3.
Yeah.
He's a day 3 guy.
Yeah.
And LaQuint Allen, Syracuse, 6 foot, about 205. He got into a fight early in his career, not on the field, but
that's why you like him.
Got in a little trouble, but he's a hard worker. All his coaches love him, and he's got huge hands for a running back.
Yeah, so he's probably the best all-around pass-catching back in this class. He's one of the few guys that can actually block at the position. He's a very high-level pass blocker, a very good pass catcher out of the backfield. It reminds me a little bit of Rashad White in Tampa Bay, that kind of player that can get out of the backfield and catch passes. But out of everything that you can give to LaQuint Allen, he might be the best pass blocker in the entire class.
So it's funny you brought up Rashad White.
Yeah.
He was also one of the guys that Schefter had being potentially available, with the emergence of Bucky Irving.
Yeah.
I'd give up a late draft pick for Rashad White. If that's something that you really want to do.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to get any value for running backs with the class that is about to come in. Like, why would you trade a draft pick when you could draft one of these dudes?
Well, because I have a guy who's ready-made. I don't have to wait for him to be ready.
That's true.
And then I only picked 2 for defensive end edge because it's such a deep draft for that. It's like they're all pretty good. As you can see, I like the local guys. Donovan Ezuraku from BC, 6'2", 248, ACC Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
I think that's something.
Yeah, he had like 16 sacks last year. He's a twitched up dude.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that you didn't know of him.
Not really.
Like, just because of the name. Like, it's, name stands out, but he made a lot of plays.
And then a late draft guy, maybe even
he's a first round
a
pick,
free undrafted free agent, R.J. Oben out of Notre Dame, 6'3", 251. He's more polished than you would think as a pass rusher. Has a lot of experience. I think he's played 6 years. He played at Duke before Notre Dame. If nothing else, he's special teams. But I think he could actually become a rotational pass rusher.
He's got some moves in his arsenal. He's not quite the athlete that some of these other guys are, which is why he's gonna go a little bit later. But
he's got skills.
He's got skill. He's got hands. He's got heavy hands. He's got some counters to his game. He was. What's the word? He was decent in Mobile. Like, we saw him at the Senior Bowl, and he was solid. But Donovan Azaraku is one of my favorites. He's going to go early. I think, just twitched up, sudden mover, can rush off the edge, speed rush, beat you inside, defends the run well. Just a really good player.
So Azaraku probably doesn't qualify as a back-of-the-envelope guy. He's too good. He's
He's a top 32 talent in the draft. Yeah.
So I want to say it was the Florida State game that I really noticed him. Like, he wrecked that game.
Yeah, he's right there with, like Mike Green and Shamar Stewart and all those guys. He's a little bit cleaner off the field than Mike Green, so I could actually see him going ahead of Mike Green in the draft. I think he's a back end of the first round talent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I hope to get to defensive backs, linebackers, and tight ends. Those are the other three positions I want to get to before Thursday.
You're not doing jaggy wide receivers this year?
You already did the receivers.
No, I already did the wide receivers.
No, I know, but they were good ones.
No.
Nick Nash is going.
Yeah. Come on, my bad. You had Nick Nash.
I mean, Thornton's late draft.
You had Nick Nash.
He's not day 1 or 2, right? Thornton.
Dante Thornton.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
But
he's so I consider anyone that's day 3. I consider that's back of the envelope.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
Good.
You're right.
Those are good names. Good tackles.
You are right.
Good tackles. Those guys, I think, Logan Brown, Travis, like those guys are all flyers at the on day 3 that a lot of people have liked throughout this process. Size with Travis and athleticism with Brown.
Yep. Okay. So let's get back to the phones. We've got Kareem in Boston. What's up, Kareem?
Hey guys, it's Boston Kareem here. My question is there any chance that we completely punt on left tackle and we just take a flyer and the team just goes best player available and then addresses the position next year?
I do think there's a chance.
Yeah, I would say there's a chance. I think it's probably unlikely, but yeah, I could make an argument for that.
Yep.
And then is there any chance that we can bring back the pickleback shots this year for the draft show?
Oh, what did he say?
The
pickle juice?
The shots.
Yeah.
Pickleback shots. So you guys, didn't you and Andy do that one year?
I don't remember.
I don't think you need to do that at left tackle.
You don't need to do pickleback shots?
I don't think you need to skip it. Like, I think there's if you truly want to stick to the board and play best play, like there's gonna be tackles on that you're gonna be able to draft at the spots on day 1, day 2 that you can justify sticking to the board and taking those guys. I don't think you have to.
Thanks, Boston
punt on
Kareem.
the position.
Let's go to Brad in Ohio. What's up, Brad?
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Okay.
You ready for the draft?
I miss Mike.
We're getting ready.
Getting there.
That's right. Couple quick questions for you guys today. Keep up the good job. If we look at it from a defensive perspective and gleaming from what Vrabel said in his interview, which defensive player do you think would be the best to counter from a Patrick Mahomes, Allen, and Jackson, given that position? Because he talked about a premium position, so I'm thinking he's going to go somebody to try to go after one of them. Who would be the best for that? That's my first question. And then there's a couple Iowa players, a defensive tackle, Yaya Black, I believe, and linebacker Higgins, that I'd like to see maybe looked into. And then Luke Lackey, a tight end. And I did ask Evan and Alex once about double dipping at tight end. And the reason why is because the ones we have are good, but they're just kind of old. So I was wondering if maybe we should, upgrade for Drake's perspective.
Yeah, there's some good tight ends. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Brad.
I don't think you have to draft 2 of them. I don't see the need for that. But adding a tight end to developmental pipelines
What
on
was
the
his
list.
first question about, like?
Who's the best?
Who's the best to go after?
Yeah,
Abdul Carter.
I mean, it's Abdul Carter in this draft. I mean, I like Jalen Walker, as a realistic possibility at 4, but that's one thing that stood out to me with Vrabel is when he talked about sort of at his introductory press conference, guys who affect the quarterback. And that's why I think they still have a need for edge rush. And I think Evan's point about the depth at that spot makes a lot of sense. Like, I don't necessarily think you need to use the 4th overall pick on that position because you can get a really good one, as you said, Fred, with Ezeraku as a guy later in the first round that might be available even at the top of the second when you go. Is there that much of a difference? Probably not.
Yeah.
Especially with Walker, even though I have a crush on Walker, there is some question as to whether does he fit best as a pure edge guy or is he sort of an off-the-ball linebacker type who can do sort of those different things.
Mm-hmm.
He's smaller but kind of like Dante Hightower. Like you use him as an edge rusher on certain situations. He comes up the A-gap on other situations. He's not as big as Hightower, as I said, but
how much
has that kind of versatility.
How much do we have to factor in the Vrabel type of player in trying to figure out who's going to get picked?
I do think it's getting a tad overrated.
Thank you.
At this point.
Yeah.
I think there are certain positions, where they talk about effort and finish. Well, if you're going to play defense or offensive line, then effort and finish is going to be a big part of the position that you play. But are they going to take a guy, Jalen Walker's getting a lot of buzz because he has got all the intangible qualities that Vrabel wants. He's going to be a team captain someday. He's going to have great effort and finish. He's going to be, one of those high character guys in the locker room. And
other teams don't want that.
And that might push him above other people.
And that's why I think Evan's 1,000% right.
Yeah.
Like, he's a Vrabel guy. Like, what coach doesn't want guys that play hard,
right?
Work, they work hard on and off the field. They're team oriented. They finish, play to the whistle. Like,
right.
I mean, all coaches want those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. With Jalen Walker, I posted a breakdown of him today, and I think, Paul, you nailed it to me. Like, I have Jalen Walker as a linebacker. A lot of people have Jalen Walker as an edge rusher. At 6'1", 240, I don't see how you're going to play edge rusher full-time in the NFL. So I look at him as Hightower. Like, he's going to play off the ball on first and second down, and then on third down, they'll put him in the pass rush somewhere, whether it's, over the guard or out over the tackle. But I don't see him as a full-time pass rusher guy off the edge, but I think that he's going to be able to do a little bit of both, and he's going to bring the intangibles and the football character side of it.
And he definitely has that. I mean, people speak of him really glowingly in terms of his leadership and professionalism.
He has a chance to be like a captain as a second-year player, like like a Devin McCourty type of captain for a decade type of player. But is he the best player on the football field? Which is what Vrabel said at his his press conference, pre-draft press conference, was he's got to be a good football player first. Like, we're not just drafting a bunch of Boy Scouts. Like, you have to have good football players first.
Michael writes in, I'm interested in the idea of trading down. If we trade down with the Saints at number 9, what are the chances Will Campbell will still be available? And if not, do we hit the panic button and grab Kelvin Banks or Armand Membu at 9?
So I'm glad you brought this up. Yeah. I do think there's a chance that you could do something like that. I don't know exactly what the odds are, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that you could still get Campbell. I wanted to talk to Evan about Kelvin Banks a little bit.
Yeah.
You guys know, like, going back to, like, during the season, Kelvin Banks was my tackle of choice.
Yeah.
He sort of slipped after getting, ironically, getting dominated by my guy, Jalen Walker, and that Georgia
Michael Williams
defense.
Yeah.
He seems to be on the rise again. Am I imagining that?
Yeah, we're going full circle here with two guys, Tet McMillan and Kelvin Banks. Sounds like a lot of the buzz that Tet McMillan was going to fall maybe to like the 20 range. That seems to be a little bit overblown. Similarly with Banks, I think both those guys are, probably go in the 10 to 20 range conservatively, but are still going to go early in the draft. I think the one thing that people have concerns with Banks at tackle, because a lot of people project Banks to play guard at the next level. Actually, he's a guard in the beast. Dane Brugler has him as a guard. the more space he plays in, the body control and the balance is not always there. So when he gets out on an island against pass rushers and he's got to dance with those guys out there, he's not the best at sustaining blocks and being able to stay connected to those pass rushers. So some people think that his playing style is a little bit more conducive to playing inside versus outside, but I think that the league views him as a top 20 player in the class.
And I think, it's funny. I don't pretend to be the expert on offensive line play, but he seems to me to have prototypical.
He has a lot of prototypical traits. He's an extremely wide-bodied guy. He's got the length. He's got the foot speed, athleticism, but a really good run blocker already. Again,
There's
it's
another
just
one with a lot of character too, Fred. High character guy, Kelvin Banks.
There you go.
Yep.
Jack in Ann Arbor, who's our insider at Michigan, he says Miles Hinton transferred to Michigan from Stanford. He played very little his first year due to injury. He played left tackle the next season. He never lived up to his billing. He's a huge guy who doesn't play physically. Early on, he struggled with pass protection. He eventually settled in as a solid but not dominant left tackle. I'm skeptical he will ever develop into a starting left tackle in the NFL. He would be worth drafting in the 6th or 7th round. Perhaps Hinton has a better future in the NFL as a guard.
I don't know about the guard part. I mean, I watched him at tackle, and I just, if you're going day 3, I think he's spot on that he's a day 3 pick. There's no doubt about that. But if you're going day 3, he's got a lot of the raw tools and measurables that lend themselves to a higher ceiling than some of the other guys. Over 34-inch arms, really good athlete, highly touted guy that never lived up to the billing. But you put him in the right program with the right coach, and maybe you get that 5-star talent out of him. So as a day 3 flyer, that's what teams are looking for, are the guys that have some upside and some ceiling to them at that point in the draft.
Spee in Fresno says listening to the first 3 callers speaking and not being heard by you guys and then getting hung up on was hilarious. Poor boys had to walk the plank. And Fred, my appliance guy, gave the thumbs up on Speed Queen. Oh, listen, I know what I'm talking about there. Ford in Savannah, Fred, let it be known we were lockstep on Ladd, and now we are once again with Tyler Warren. Evan, him being good at multitude of things is not a good argument for not selecting him. Let's go, Patriots. Please surprise us.
He was really good at multiple things, but wasn't actually good. Adelius Thomas. I feel like there's a lot of players like that are just
very Paul-like, having one at the ready.
Yeah.
That was good.
It just, obviously different positions, but I think in the league you have to have something that you're elite at to truly move the needle for a team. What is the one thing that you can hang your hat on and say, I am awesome at this?
And that's the question on this draft, because I would agree with you. You need to be elite at something if you're going to be one of those picks.
Yeah.
You're going to be a top 10 pick in a draft. You got to have an elite trait, but maybe in this draft there aren't a lot of guys with elite traits.
Yeah.
So you're just picking the next best.
He's one of the cleanest prospects in the draft. You're going to get a starting
I like him a lot.
tight end. I
do.
just don't know if he's going to be an elite tight end. He's going to be a good tight end for a long time. I'm also ageist, so that's part of it too. He's older, and I don't love older prospects. It's not impressive to me when a 24-year-old owns 18-year-olds.
You know
at
who
the
agreed with
level.
you on that is Belichick.
Yeah, I'm a little
Belichick
ageist.
tended to gravitate to the underclassmen a lot.
Yeah.
He liked the younger guys.
Well, I think, most teams. That's why when those juniors declare, they go higher because you get them for they're.
Well, it's part of it. Yeah, mostly they
just
declare
took
because
Warren,
they're more talented.
Yeah. It took Warren 5 years to really.
Where would those 2 wide
college.
receivers go if they came out right now? Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith?
Jeremiah Smith might be the first pick in the draft.
They'd probably both be in the top 10 anyway.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nick in Connecticut, if Luther Burden slips into the late first, early second round, I'd love for the Patriots to find a way to get him. This got me thinking about how he and Diggs would gel in the locker room and on the field. I believe both have a similar skill set, so if Diggs was willing to mentor him, it could be an amazing fit. With that said, I know Diggs has had the reputation of being a distraction and sometimes not having the best attitude. With the Burden's red flags coming into the league, it could potentially exacerbate the issue instead of it being a positive. I'm just interested in where you guys fall on that.
So I'm just going to talk about Diggs, and I'll let Ev talk about Burden, who I love, by the way. But just the whole off-field thing with Diggs, and this is something I've argued with Mike about a lot, and I wish he was here. For a guy who is like as big a problem as everybody makes him out to be, he's been on nothing but winning teams.
Yeah.
In Minnesota, they won. Yeah. In Buffalo, they won. And last year in Houston, they won. So he can't be that disruptive. He's always part of a winning program.
Didn't win it all, Paul.
No, I understand that.
Oh.
I understand that. You know who else didn't win it all? Logan Mankins. You think he was disruptive?
Well, when he had his contract thing.
Yeah, that's why they didn't win it all?
I'm only kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Luther Burden. I have him as the third best receiver in the class. I think he's getting dinged for the off-field stuff and for the character stuff. And to me, he's the biggest litmus test of the whole Vrabel thing in this entire draft. Like, if the Patriots pass on Luther Burden at 38, then I will be 100% sold that Vrabel's football character and, you know, getting the right kind of guy is holding a lot of weight in the draft room, because that guy is definitely a first-round talent. So, like, you can't pass on him on 38 based off the football. I think he's a little bit different than Diggs. Like, he's better after the catch, and he's more elusive with the ball in his hands than Stephon Diggs, but not maybe as good of a route runner as Diggs is. But he's, to me, he's like a Zay Flowers, Deebo Samuel type of receiver. But I love Luther Burden, and another one, young player, early breakout, true sophomore breakout in 2023. And I think that last year was just a bad year for the program. It was a bad year for the quarterback. It was a bad year for everybody at Missouri. They didn't live up to the expectations, and that hurt them.
And just, with that character concern out of the draft for Vrabel, it's worth mentioning he took a handful of risks in Tennessee and, for the most part, was not rewarded for them. I believe one major hit in that regard was Jeffrey Simmons, who had some questions coming out. And obviously that was a home run, but he also took is it Isaiah Wilson, the guy who played like 5 plays, for him as a first-round pick. There was a lot of questions I remember at the combine. I believe that was one of my last combines. There were a lot of questions about him there in Indy. They took him anyway in the first round, and he was out of the league. I think he literally played less than a game in the league. Caleb Farley was an injury risk that obviously turned out to be valid. He didn't play a whole lot, so he's taken some risks.
The injury one in his pre-draft press conference, that's what he pointed out specifically when it comes to what did you learn. The question was, what did you learn from Tennessee? And they took some injury risks early on in the draft, and that's why I've more or less crossed Josh Simmons off the list. I think that he's going to learn from some of or change his ways, I guess, is a better way to put it, with some of those things when it comes to injured guys. There's a couple of other guys that have popped up now. You start to hear about the guys that have medical red flags on them from teams this time of year. Jihad Campbell's another one. Will Johnson has a knee thing that people are worried about.
Now, is that I wanted to ask you about him, too. He's the corner from Michigan, Freddie. And there was some questions about his sort of speed, his long speed, and now he's dealing with this knee thing. Generally, you're not going to gain speed. It's not like Tommy John surgery where, all of a sudden you start throwing 3 miles an hour harder after you go under the knife. Is there concerns about Will Johnson?
It sounds like it's more longevity than it is like he's hurt right now. I think it's more of like a Sony Michel situation of how long is the knee going to hold up?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Joe writes in, I think they should be giving serious consideration to taking Genty. The examples like McCaffrey and Barkley are examples where teams never had and never got a quarterback. For at least this year, you should be building your teams under the assumption you do. If May proves to be bad, you can reassess. Teams who had the quarterback ended up doing very well drafting a running back high. Some pro running back examples, Dallas with Dak and Zeke, the Rams with Goff and Gurley, and even the Jags with Fournette and Bortles. If you can trade down and get Genty, I think that's your best bet. Trade back up, get a left tackle, then find a pass rusher and guard with those third-rounders.
It's basically Evan's argument.
It's a fair plan. It's a fair plan. And, the Dallas one, I think, is Dallas drafted Dak the same class that they drafted Zeke, and they stumbled into Dak Prescott. It's a 4th-round pick that turned out to be a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I like his argument. I would question his examples. Leonard Fournette is an example of a good pick at 4.
They did make
because
the
they had
championship
because
game.
they had Blake Bortles.
Yeah,
they had an unbelievable team, right? That was very talented and probably should have gone to the Super Bowl. They probably should have beaten the Patriots
that day
here in that that's 17 AFC Championship.
Yep.
Yeah.
They had the Patriots dead and buried. But I would argue that just because you had success for a fleeting season doesn't mean that was a good pick.
Yeah, and Gurley and Goff's a good one, but Gurley's another example of a running back that flamed out after his rookie contract. So the longevity thing is...
Thanks for reminding me of that one, because that to me is that should be the poster child of why you don't do that.
Right.
Because it's such a short shelf life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Let's see. This is John. Where is he from? Denver. He calls himself the Denver Omelet.
Oh.
Little would you rather game. Would you rather draft all offensive players or draft all defensive players?
All offense.
This year in this draft.
This year, offense.
Okay. Would you rather trade Drake May to the Giants for Neighbors in the number 3 pick, or trade Drake and number 4 for Patrick Mahomes? Bonus, this forces Kelsey to cry and retire in his podcast, and he and Taylor break up.
Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I don't no interest in the Giants trade.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that Giants trade.
No.
Now.
But I would do the Kansas City one.
Yeah.
Film rookie content, trout fishing with Travis Hunter, or wrestle gators with Will Campbell?
I want nothing to do with gators, so I'll take the first one.
That. Scenario: Mike Vrabel is abducted by aliens. Who would you rather bring back as head coach? Gerard Mayo, Bill Belichick, or Josh McDaniels?
Bill Belichick.
Josh McDaniels.
You'd rather bring Josh McDaniels back?
Yeah.
Than Bill?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you're not just bringing Bill back.
I didn't say that Josh McDaniels is a better head coach than Bill Belichick.
You'd rather
but if you're asking me right
Josh
now what I'd rather
McDaniels.
I'd rather have Josh McDaniels than a 74 or 3, whatever you're told, Bill Belichick.
That's crazy.
I saw enough of Bill at the end. I don't think he was the same coach.
Did you see Josh in Vegas? It wasn't so great.
I didn't say that was great.
No.
Didn't say that was great.
No offense. No offense.
Would you rather win Super Bowl 52 with Brady's comeback drive and Bill reveals why Malcolm Butler didn't play, or win Super Bowl 42 in the 19-0 season?
42.
19-0.
Yeah, 19-0.
Not even a question.
Not even a question.
Yep.
Would you rather spend the day with Jack in Ann Arbor touring the Michigan facility while he talks about every obscure Michigan player that the Patriots should draft, or may even get to smell Harbaugh's you even get to smell Harbaugh's used skivvies at the end? Ugh. Or spend the day with Christian in L.A. in his 5th home on the Amalfi Coast, seeing how people in that tax bracket live. The two of you can spit from his high tower down to the rest of us heathens.
Definitely Christian in L.A.
Christian in L.A.
100%.
Yeah.
Sounds like he might just be throwing it around a little bit. Hey, here we go. Hey, thanks.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. He doesn't like Christian in L.A. So.
Poor Christian in L.A. I like how he gets on every call now when he has his preemptive
I know people hate
retorts
me, but,
to all his critics.
I do think it's funny that he also brings up the weather in LA, and he's like, it's finally getting warm. It's like, it's always warm. Like, what do you mean it's finally getting warm? Like, you go out to LA, the coldest it gets is like 40 degrees.
It's like we had a beautiful day here on Saturday. It's like, I think it hit the 80s at one point. And I had a bunch of stuff to do. I got a lot of stuff done. I very much enjoyed, actually, for a change, doing yard work because it was so nice out. But I didn't get to golf. So I went golfing yesterday afternoon. And we were back in the 50s with 30-mile-an-hour winds in my face on every shot.
Yeah. That's not LA.
In a related story, I sucked. Fred's not even paying attention.
Oh.
No.
What's the matter?
I was talking about
Lightning?
how nice it was on Saturday, but I was busy with other stuff. I didn't get to golf and enjoy that weather. I played yesterday, and it was back to like 50 degrees, wind in your face every shot.
And you didn't do well.
And I suck.
Where'd you play?
The Meadows in Peabody.
The Meadows?
Yeah.
Fancy.
Yeah.
It's not it's a public course. It's not fancy.
Sounds fancy.
Let's see. Ryan.
It's really not. It doesn't even have a clubhouse.
Ryan in Watertown appreciates everything we do. With the draft this Thursday, I'm sure everyone is going to ask questions about wide receiver. I'd like to hear your perspective on this scenario. I'm going to list some wide receivers that could potentially be on our roster, and I want to hear from each of you who makes your ideal 2025-2026 six-man wide receiver room. Considering Diggs and Mac Hollins are locks, pick 4 more from the list below.
Oh. This is complicated.
So the list is Douglas, Bourne, Polk, Booty, Baker, and then free agents. It's too long. No, forget it. It's too many people.
I thought this was going to be a draft related
Yeah, it's too many people. I'm sorry, Ryan. But
yeah, I
you
mean,
can't send us an email that makes us think too much.
Jalen Noel or Kyle Williams.
Yeah.
Draft one of those two guys.
Yeah. I mean, I like both of those guys. I tend to gravitate to the outside guys a little bit more than Evan does, but I like both. Williams has really come on a lot.
That's what I like a little bit more about. I love Jalen Noel, you know that. But
Yeah.
Kyle Williams can play a little bit on the outside. He's got some ability to play, stretch the field, beat press coverage, like that kind of thing. So I've gravitated a little bit more towards him too. And I put him in the mock draft, and everybody told me I took him too high. I did not take him too high. I'm telling you that right now. That guy's not making it out of the second round. So maybe 38, maybe he's going to go 50 instead of 38, but he's not making it out of the second round.
It's another one of those, if you want him, you got to take him.
Yeah, exactly.
Brandon in California. At this point in the draft process, I feel like we have exhausted just about every possible outcome for the Patriots in the first round. Barring a trade back into the end of the first round, Thursday night might end up being a quick and possibly boring night for Patriots fans. That's why I would like to be more like Fred and have some teams to root against on night one. My question is if any of you have some players you would hate to see land on other teams. Personally, I would hate to see a scenario where we pass on Campbell and watch him fall to the Jets, especially if he ends up being great like I think he will be. Another example of this might be someone like Luther Burden being swooped up at the end of the first round by a team like the Bills or the Chiefs.
The latter one, I would put right in that category what he's talking about. I don't want to see those passing teams that I think are like a weapon away from being really tough to stop get a guy like that.
Yeah, I know. I just trying to keep up a little bit with the rest of the AFC East, and Buffalo. A lot of people in Buffalo want them to go defense because of how the defense took a little bit of a step back last year, and specifically defensive line. And you see a lot of mocks with like Kenneth Grant from Michigan or Walter Nolan or whatever. And I'm like, take one of those guys. Go right. Do you want to take an interior run stuffer in the first round? If you're Buffalo, go right ahead. Take it.
I would say on the flip side though, like when you're picking in the late 20s, 30s, that's where you like. That's where you'd pick. Like that's why I'm not overly interested in Mason Graham.
Yeah.
But I would take, one of those guys at 27, whatever Buffalo's picking. They got to be picking like 28, 29.
Yeah,
right?
they want to get stouter through the middle. They want to be a better
Mason
run
Graham's
defense.
dropped a little bit, don't you think? Just in perception, like
he didn't do anything in the pre-draft process, like nothing. He didn't work out, nothing. And I think when that type of stuff happens, you kind of forget about him a little bit, right? Like, people start to kind of forget about him.
Right.
And, I've never been crazy about him, compared to some other people. Just 296-pound interior defensive lineman that isn't a great athlete. Like, clearly, if he was a good athlete, he would have tested. So he's not a great athlete. I think we can say that.
Yeah.
He's kind of like,
good point.
A technique wizard and an effort guy.
Motor guy.
And, right.
Here's a what's more likely game. And this is from Tyler in Ludlow. What's more likely? There are less than 3 first-round trades, or half of the top 10 picks are traded. I think less.
What's more likely?
Yeah.
Less than 3.
Less than 3.
Yeah.
What's more likely? Patriots draft Will Campbell at 4 or the field?
I'm taking Will Campbell.
I'm going to say Will Campbell's more likely.
Yeah.
I just feel like everybody is in agreement. And it's funny. I had a conversation about this too, and I was told to, I don't know why you're putting so much stock in the fact that everybody thinks they're picking Will Campbell.
Right.
Because, Vrabel is not necessarily a guy that would track to telling everybody what they're going to do, so that people are just making their opinions. But I just feel like there's an overwhelming amount of evidence right now that people seem to be all in on Campbell.
Yeah, I think with Campbell, to go to a golf analogy, you're on the fairway. Like, did you hit a 350-yard drive? Probably not, but you're on the fairway. I think with some of these other guys, you worry about being in the woods.
See, I was on the fairway all day yesterday, but it was at that point that I was not getting from the fairway to the green.
See, that's where we could have teamed up. I could have shot that second shot.
I hit like 3 irons over the green yesterday. And it wasn't because I hit them long. It's because I didn't hit them right.
Yeah.
So when you hit like an iron off the heel and it goes further than it normally would?
Yeah.
That's why I was hitting them over the green.
Yeah.
Not because I just had the wrong club there. Oh,
Yeah.
I just, I bulked
room.
up.
I'm not a big golf
I was
guy.
mishitting everything.
I don't golf, but I watched the end of the Masters, and that shot that Rory hit
Before or after he choked and missed the putt?
Before. The
one that curved around and
was
kept going.
one of the greatest shots I've
yeah.
ever seen. I
Great
mean,
shot.
that was unreal.
What's more likely,
Choking
Ashton
dog.
Genty is a top 4 pick or he isn't a top 20 pick?
He is a top 4 pick. Definitely more. He's not.
Oof.
I'm gonna go. He's not. I mean, I don't think he's going in the top 4.
I don't think there's any shot he's a top 4 pick.
Well,
right?
there's a shot.
Yeah,
but
the Patriots
like
could take him. Somebody could
So
trade
I'm
up
going to
and
say
take
this
him.
top 4 because I think there's a better chance the Patriots take him at 4 than he goes out of the top 20.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
What's more likely, the Cowboys' war room celebrates after making their pick just like they defeated an alien invasion, or Paul drinks a Diet Pepsi on draft night? Well, we know that.
Well, both of those are very low.
What's the over/under on Diet Pepsis on draft night? Usually, that's a heavy DP
Probably
night.
32. One
No.
for each pick?
That's a lot.
No?
My eyes would be bugging out of my head.
I noticed in the dispenser out there, the snack, the drink dispenser, they took out all the Celsius. Is that because they just haven't filled it, or is there a thing like we're not distributing that stuff?
When's the
anymore?
next Revs game?
I don't.
We need a home Revs game.
A lot of the time,
we gotta get this.
There's Revs games like Saturday night, like of draft weekend. I think Messi was here. Was that last year or 2 years ago that he was here on on day 3, the night of day 3? So maybe Saturday.
Yeah.
That's not going to help me though.
No.
Ford and Savannah, why does the inevitability of selecting Campbell with the 4th overall pick feel like getting socks for Christmas?
Because it is.
Sure, I desperately need socks, but I won't feel anything but underwhelmed when receiving them.
That is
Hey,
exactly
listen,
what it is.
I think you're underselling Will Campbell and the need at left tackle. I think you're going to be, mid-year, you're going to be very happy he's on this team.
Yeah, but two things can be true. Like, who do you think is the best left tackle, of all time?
Of all time?
Or just
Orlando
who's
Pace.
you love Tyron Smith.
I like Tyron Smith.
Tyron Smith is like getting socks.
No, he isn't.
Yes, it is. I understand what Evan's point is.
Yeah.
It's like it's a blocker.
No, but
and you hope
it's not fun.
You hope that he pans out. You hope that he's your guy of the future, and then you're like, oh, that was a smart pick. See, we did the right thing. We got the right guy.
When you get a guy like that, then he's a Hall of Famer, man.
No, I understand.
There's a few tackles that, I think Penny Sewell changes the Lions' offense, right? Because he's so athletic and he can get out in space and he can block and on the move so well that you can schematically build the offense around a guy like that. But that's everybody else is just kind of, is he serviceable at the position or is he not?
Nate writes in, he says, I've always wondered if I would ever meet any of the Unfiltered crew, and last week it finally happened. I ran into Deuce while he was out for a walk with Zook.
I heard this story.
Who had bitten a squirrel. Zook bit a squirrel? Oh.
Yeah.
Turns out Deuce lives right up the street from me in a house my kids used to go to daycare in. I'm writing to say that Deuce is exactly the same kind, thoughtful, and engaging person he is on air, and thank him for taking a few minutes to talk to me and my son. The whole experience was great and moved him up my Unfiltered panelist rankings, which he sorely needed after the precipitous slide following the Genty mock draft. Football-wise, please get Evan to stop recommending the Patriots draft undersized wide receivers or slot receivers in general. Eldred and I would like to continue to listen to the show. The Josh McDaniels Patriots have never had an issue with production from that position, and they won't this year either. Pop can play it, and if he doesn't have the durability, it will be next man up, and they can figure out what they have in that room. Not to mention they're paying Stephon Diggs $20 million plus per year, and he played 46% of his snaps from the slot, according to Evan. The Patriots need outside help, and it's unfortunate this isn't the draft to get it, but ultimately we can't play three slots at once.
I'm not too worried about where they're all going to play. I just want guys that can get open and
I'm
make
not
big
either,
plays.
and Diggs is not making anywhere near that amount of money, by the way.
His top 100 draft for the Patriots is Will Campbell at 4, Landon Jackson at 38, defensive end, Dylan Sampson, running back at 69, Andrew Makuba at 77, free safety, and at 106, everyone's favorite, Dante Thornton.
Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, it's a little high for Thornton, but the other, right? I like all the other players. I I just look at it a little bit differently, like in terms of the outside-inside thing. I just like guys that can create separation and guys that make big plays.
All right, we'll do one more call, then we're going to hit the road. It's Danny in Michigan. What's up, Danny?
Oh, hey, how's it going, guys?
Good.
Hey, Danny.
Hey, Danny. I just had a little 2 questions for you about the wide receiver position. One, why can't Kayshon Boutte, I know they're different types of wide receiver, but why can't Kayshon Boutte have a similar career trajectory as a Nico Collins, who came into the league, a late-round draft pick and a project guy, and then year 3 he really blew up onto the scene?
I mean, do you see the same physical characteristics with those 2 players?
No, and I said that they're not the same type of player, but I saw Nico Collins play at Michigan, who was not a very explosive receiver all the time.
But he's a pretty imposing receiver, wouldn't you say? Like, just physically.
Yeah, I would say just physically 6'4". Yeah, he's a pretty big guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would be my only thing. But, I mean, your larger point is not off. I think that's why Evan and I thought it would be a little bit early to pull the plug on that, because I do think there's a chance that he's still ascending. We don't know exactly. I think he got better from year 1 to year 2. Will he get better again from year 2 to year 3?
Or even if he's just the guy that he is now, like if you're not feeding that position 150 targets in a season and that's more of like a secondary position in your offense, then Kayshon Boutte can be a third receiver in your offense. Is he the high volume guy? No, but if Diggs is going to be that, or Diggs and a rookie are going to be that, then Boutte's just the other guy that's kind of out there.
And when did Nico Collins get drafted, by the way? Do you remember?
I want to say third round.
Yeah, that's a lot earlier than the 6th.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like Nico Collins is 6'4" with a 4.4. Like he's kind of like DK Metcalf level size.
Yeah, I'll keep my thoughts as to the
Different
emergence
players.
of Nico Collins off the year. I don't have to, but my guess is I'm wondering maybe if he learned something at the NFL level too.
All right, that's going to be it for this show. Catch 22 is on at noon tomorrow, so
Correct.
more draft talk tomorrow. On Thursday, we will not be on at our normal time at noon because it's the draft. We'll be live at 7. We'll have video for the first hour, and then league rules say we need to shut off the video. Video will still be on Patriots.com, though, and YouTube. It'll just be shut off for social media.
Right.
So if that's how you consume us, you'll have to go to Patriots.com.
The old-fashioned
and
way.
YouTube. But we will be on Thursday night, as we always are, for the duration of the first round. We'll have everything. We'll have Mike Vrabel after the pick. He's supposed to come on live, so we'll carry that live. We'll cut away to the draft party to see what's going on over there. So it's a big night. Draft show is always one of our favorite shows that we do.
Absolutely.
And our favorite show from our listeners and viewers as well. So can't wait. Don't know what I'm going to wear yet. I haven't picked that out. Paul, what are you wearing? Same.
Probably a quarter zip.
Put a quarter zip from some allegiance that you have.
Maybe I don't know. I'll
Yeah.
give it some thought.
Okay.
Maybe I'll wear the Citadel.
You wear
for my son.
You're gonna go with the Citadel?
I'll go with the Citadel.
You can lay it out the night before on.
I do not. That's Fred.
Yeah. All right. We will see you on Thursday night. Catch 22 tomorrow. Thanks for listening today. See you then. Hey, this is Fred. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you really want to help us, make sure that you like us wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And also, make sure you follow us on the New England Patriots YouTube page to see this show and everything else that we do here at the Patriots. Thanks a lot.